Okay, so we should be live, as far as I am aware.
Hmm.
I'm going to double check now, which, yeah, it
Oh,
looks like
yep,
we are.
it's
See it now. So I'm gonna go on my phone to double check the audio, and then we can get right on into it. It'll be a fun, fun time.
oh god.
It'll be fine.
It's just so much to talk about.
Okay, so yeah, audio sounds fine. Um, yeah, audio sounds
Yep.
fine. Everything seems fine. So we already have 5 viewers. So hello, welcome 5 viewers. So
Hell yeah.
we can just really start now, I guess. So
Great.
so hi for anyone that was not here for our first podcast. I am Gray,
And I'm Krampus.
and together we are Colors of Hell. This is gonna be such a. I'm trying
Today we
not
are
to laugh.
talking about today we are talking about Don't Hug Cacti, as you can probably tell by the thumbnail and what you're looking at. There's a lot to discuss. A lot has happened over the past couple of months.
Yeah, even today, apparently. So, um,
Yeah.
or at least within the last like 5 days or so. But yeah. So I think before we start, like, we just talked about it now too, but want to make it clear, like, not to send any hate or harassment towards anyone mentioned in this video at all.
Yeah.
Um,
And everything that we talk about is our own opinions. They're not facts. Like, don't come after people. It's not necessary. And there's already enough drama happening right now.
yeah, we saw a different insight to everything that we definitely want. I mean, a lot of it's the same. A lot of it's the same opinion, but definitely near the end, we're going to be touching on a lot about podcast Shiokami. I think I'm saying that right. Made with
Yeah.
Lucky and Scuff. But for the beginning, we're going to talk about how we got to that point and where we're at today. So, let me get to OBS and yeah. Do you want to start off the first explanation of like how this started?
So it started with a huge Google Doc being released by Cutins, I believe.
Yeah.
And there's 17 different people involved, and some of them being anonymous. So we're not entirely sure of who they are. And a lot of it has to do with Lucky allegedly grooming people and being an overall real shit human being.
Yes. No, it definitely was like it was a lot. I think I've read it twice now, and it's a lot to take in.
Yeah,
Which is
there's
oh, sorry.
yeah, no, that's okay. You could go.
I was just gonna say maybe also just disclaimer: there will be talk of zoophilia, pedophilia, grooming, I
Animal
abuse. Yeah,
abuse,
animal
animal
abuse.
abuse.
I guess right, like manipulation, but that kind of fell into grooming. Just a disclaimer to everything bad, basically. Um, that you can
Drug
ever
abuse
imagine.
too.
Drug abuse, giving drugs and alcohol to a minor, just everything. It was a lot. As like I have the screenshot up right now, so it's like almost 3,000 retweets, 777 quote tweets, and over 5,000 likes. So it was a
That's a
big thing.
lot.
It was a big thing. Yeah. So then I think shortly afterwards, not shortly, I think it was like a day or two afterwards, I think Doha Katai made a tweet right after, which I have
Yeah,
that.
which they turned off the replies on, so you could only quote retweet to be able to respond to it.
Yeah. Only I have the screenshot here. It says who can reply question mark. People at Doha Katai mentioned can reply. So no one could reply other than Doha Katai. So in the tweet as can be read on screen, it says Doha Katai does not condone any immoral or illegal activity. We proudly employ members of our local furry community and members actively supporting the LGBTQ plus community. In these stressful times, please be respectful of Doha Katai customers and employees. We are a team of 5 full-time employees who create. Cannot read.
And create artisan costumes for people throughout the world. We have helped raise over $7,000 in donations for animal rescues with goals of much more. Blonde Foxy is not the owner of Don't Hug Cacti. Keep that in mind.
Keep it in mind.
She had left social media several weeks ago and has been receiving treatment for social media addiction and other personal issues. While she was a part of our infancy and we are grateful for her artistic contributions, every member of our team has risen up and contributes every day to improve our quality, customer service, and charity. And we hope our hard work will shine through. Thank you for supporting us during these difficult times.
Yeah. So it was a long tweet, and a lot of people believed it. Some people didn't, and some people did. And it was understandable because obviously it was very confusing on what to believe at this time, as it was all very fresh. So
People were content with on Foxy not being a part of the company anymore, not having that power. But turns out that that was a lie.
yeah. Yeah, we found out very like not even very much later on, literally in the next screenshot. So after this, for a while, nothing happened. Everyone kind of didn't move on from it. Everyone remembered it, but obviously people kept buying from Don Hakate because everyone allegedly believed that Blonde Foxy was no longer a part of Don Hakate. As it states, Blonde Foxy is not the owner of DHC. So
Which in of itself is kind of, I don't know how anyone would have believed that because they're married and they're
exactly.
both the owners of Donut Cacti. Like, what are you gonna do? Fire your wife?
See, I didn't know he
No.
owned Don Hakate myself. I will say that. When this first came out, I didn't know Scuff also owned, or I didn't know he was the actual owner of Don Hakate. I thought it was her. So I thought when that
I,
tweet came out, I thought it was another employee making it or something. I had no idea.
yeah. She seemed more of the spokesperson for them. I think Scuff might have been more on like the financial business side of things while she was the social media light.
I definitely agree with that for sure. So then we got into what kind of sparked it all up again. I think this was a couple months ago. I remember seeing this and I was pretty livid about it myself. There's a screenshot here. So originally on Don't Hug Katai's website, one of the victims was listed in the Google Doc named as Nico. They were the ones that made reference sheets for people who were getting suits from Don't Hug Katai. Well, they took down one of the victims' art, Nico's, and replaced it with none other than Lucky's art. So at that point, people realized that
She's still employed.
yeah, she didn't leave. She's still a part of the company. She never left. So that definitely I think that is definitely what sparked up a lot of issues because then people realized they got lied to, and then that's when more problems soon arose after that, as we can tell from recent events. Back I think January was when Q-Tins got a cease and desist from Don't Hug Cat Eye.
Which in of itself means a whole lot of nothing. It can escalate to a serious matter, but there are millions of cease and desist letters sent out on the daily. And unless something actually happens by hiring a lawyer or um, the victims of the Google Doc coming forward and taking Lucky to court, nothing would have happened with that cease and desist anyways.
Yeah. It was more or less of like, we don't like that, take it down. Um,
Yeah.
the one problem that kept being brought up, which I was the one that was definitely bringing it up too, is that it was weird that Don't Hug Cat Eye as a company made the cease and desist. When if you read the Google Doc, Don't Hug Cat Eye was never brought up by name whatsoever in that Google Doc. The company was definitely affected, yes, but was the company's name listed in the Google Doc? No. It was.
No.
I don't know.
It was the entire thing was a direct um it was all based towards Lucky and her actions over the past what decade,
It was back, I
more
think,
than that.
yeah, some of the stuff went back to 2010, I think 2011, if I'm remembering correctly. I
Yeah,
don't quote me on it. I think the latest one went back to 2011 though,
yeah.
or
So
2013. I don't remember. I gotta read it again.
so even though Lucky is a co-owner of Don't Hug Cacti, when people are talking about Lucky as a person, they're not trying to damage that business in a sense of like bewares about the business is what ruins a business. But when you are coming out about the person in itself, in themselves, it it's they can't come out as a company and be like, well, this is an attack on us and our employees, when in reality they were only addressing Lucky.
Yeah. It was a lot. It was a whole thing. So, obviously, Kunes had to get a lawyer because obviously, like, no one was sure of what was going to be taken next. So, Kunes got a GoFundMe, which was outstanding support from it. I think Kuhn asked for $10,000, and Kunes ended up getting $12,000. And with that, Kunes has stated very publicly on Twitter as well, whatever money is not used is going towards charity. So it's not like Kunes is pocketing any of it. It is either going towards the lawyers or it is going to charity, which I think is great within itself as well. So
Yeah.
that's
And Don't
where,
Hunt Cacti have since dropped the cease and desist. So
as
there's
far
no
as we know, they have dropped the cease and desist and they don't want to take any further legal actions because damage has been done. Nothing can really, not that damage has been done. I don't know how to word it. That's how they word it, is that damage has been done. There's no fixing it.
yeah. And to take Cutens and all of the victims to court, Lucky would have to prove her innocence, which in of itself would be difficult to do.
Yeah.
So, you know,
It'd be really difficult to do, especially with a lot that we're going to be talking about here in like a couple minutes. This is, you
yeah.
think this is not even the longest part. The longest part has yet to come. Oh my god. Okay. So after that, I think it was like a couple days afterwards, Blonde Boxy made a tweet, an important message regarding recent events, where there is a YouTube video that she recorded, along with also a written statement about the cease and desist. Um, so then obviously she made her response video. Her response video was hot garbage. It was absolutely terrible. I can't even speak English. It was terrible.
All of the important things that she should have talked about and had every opportunity to talk about and bring up, she completely avoided and talked about like an email for 20 minutes.
Yeah,
It was
her video
so
is
unnecessary.
her video is 25 minutes long, and I think if I'm correct, a solid 10 minutes of that was just about one person in the Google Doc from emails
Like
from back in 2014, 2015, I think is those dates, because I think I've watched this video so many times. And even
yeah, like
then the
probably the
screenshots are
least yeah, the least severe thing that she could have talked about is what she spent the most time talking about.
yeah.
And that's what's most frustrating because you can just tell she's avoiding it or she doesn't want to bring more attention to it and be caught up in a lie.
Yeah, it's the only thing she had proof of. And so she figured that she had to run with it. But again, that's the only thing she had proof of. She didn't have proof of anything else whatsoever. Like the whole video within itself is just absolutely terrible. She brings up the not safe for work art claim about the feral porn that she was drawing, and her only excuse for it was that she had an adult blocker on it, and that the people who are posting this around should be ashamed of themselves to possibly showing it to minors. So she still didn't take accountability for it, and even then, those people that posted it also blurred out everything. So it's like,
Yeah, just because you labeled something as not safe for work doesn't mean that it's okay to put out there on the internet.
yeah, it's feral porn. It's literally, and one of it, which I'm still almost certain is of her Sona and her dog. because it's
Yeah.
very convenient timing for when she got that German Shepherd, and then just so happened to have a German Shepherd Sona in feral style.
Yeah, so to go on that, the conspiracy is that one of the main characters that she would routinely draw in feral or not safe for work drawings was based off of her real dog, like personal pet, which is kind of weird. Like, I
It's
don't know why someone would want to sexualize their pet like that and post it on the internet to flaunt it if that's the case.
it
But
definitely was really it was really weird. And me personally, I don't think feral porn is okay, but that's everyone has their own opinion on it. I think, but if you're drawing feral porn, that you have to have some sort of mindset of feral animals doing that kind of stuff.
yeah, I draw the line at when you're drawing your own pet doing stuff to
Oh, when
what
you're
is
drawing your own pet,
yeah.
that's when you're like, get out of here. Like, I'm sorry, that's nasty.
Especially when they're doing things to your persona, which is meant to represent you. And then also to go off on that, the placement pause, like
Oh
the
yeah,
tattoos on the hips. She said in her video that it was no, it was in the later video. Then they discussed that.
it was in the podcast, but I mean, we can bring it up now
Mhm.
because it has to like with the tattoos. She's
Yeah,
had those tattoos for so long.
apparently it was based off of a singer that she really liked, and she wanted to get a paw tattoo in the same placement that the other artist also had a paw tattoo. But that holds up until you see that on like some of the artwork she has it on both hips, which is for like the zoophilia placement paws
Yeah,
representation. So it's like if it had just been on the one, maybe that could have flown on the radar. But since there was two, which the artist she even said that it had the one paw print on the one hip, then why do you have two then? Like I
yeah,
don't know. And then the amount of feral porn that there were, and the placement paw tattoos, and the deliberate sexualizing of feral animals and what was apparently her pet is just
yeah.
terrible.
Do I think she did anything to her animals? No. I want to say no because I want to believe she didn't do anything to her animals. Do I think she fantasized and drew art about it? Yeah, I kind of do believe that. But this is also my own opinion. I am not saying this is true or not.
Yeah.
This is not. I don't know. It's.
Want to give her benefit of the doubt
I
that
really
she
need to
has
stop
not had
doing that
like
for people, but
I don't want to envision her doing stuff like that because the situation in itself is already bad enough, but there's no solid proof that she has done anything with her
yeah.
pets. So,
So I'm
leaving it
hoping
at
she
that.
hasn't.
Yeah, it could purely be fantasy, but
Yeah. Um. So now we get into this is where the video is gonna start getting long. So then after Lucky's video, a tweet was made, along with a video, by a YouTuber by Shi Okami, um,
an
who
inspector
and
pony.
an inspector. I think it's Brony Inspector, or
No,
I'm just gonna say
pony inspector?
Inspector. I think it's Brony because it's like the My Little Pony thing. When it's a guy in the that kind of fandom, it's known as a brony. But and I could be wrong about that. I don't watch My Little Pony. I don't particularly like it. I don't have anything against people who do. I don't understand it. Um, but I'm just gonna call him Inspector because I don't wanna for some reason say the whole thing wrong.
Yeah.
Um, so Inspector and Shiokami were the hosts. On Shiokami's channel, let's make it very clear. This is Shiokami's channel, Shiokami's podcast. Inspector is a guest on her podcast, where they interview Lucky Coyote and Scuff, aka um, just Blonde Foxy, because that's the other name she goes by, and Scuff is her husband, who also owns Doha Katai.
The primary founder of
Yeah.
Donut Cacti.
So this podcast, we're we have. I mean, you can look at the doc because me and you both have this that we can look at.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's so long. It's a 3 hour long podcast. I have listened
Oh,
to it, I think, twice.
That's 6 hours of listening
Yeah.
to that
You
bullshit.
know, I mean, totally off topic. I've listened to the Nikocado avocado video that the Right Opinion made. That's 4.5 hours long 3 times now. So I mean,
Why do you make yourself suffer?
I like Nikocado avocado. I like his freakouts. I think he's hilarious. I know it's a character. So, anyways, so yeah, so this video was 3 hours long. Um, and it was basically Shiokami and Inspector going through the Google Doc with Lucky and Scuff talking about with getting their side of the story, I guess.
I would also like to say that it was supposed to be Lucky and Scuff talking together, but it's about 90% Scuff talking and 10% Lucky.
Yeah, and it's like it's just so bad. Um you guys would have to listen to it for yourselves. I think we can read the points, and if they're really important ones, I have
Mhm.
timestamps on them as well, so we can read the timestamps if people do want to go hear these parts that we're talking about. But I think we should just jump right into this. And I want to clarify that we, again, just to say it one more time, we don't want any hate towards anyone mentioned in this video. This includes Shiokami and Inspector. Shiokami did make a response video after the amount of backlash that she got on Twitter, and we'll get to that later. But for now, we're just going to talk about the podcast itself and how it maybe could have been done better. I don't know another way to describe it.
Yeah, I can imagine interviewing people like this though, like Lucky and Scuff would be pretty intimidating. Like I would be if I were to interview them myself, like personally, I would be afraid of pissing them off and them just leaving and then having nothing for a podcast. So I can understand why they were kind of tiptoeing around them and like just kind of being like, "Oh, okay, that's enough for answer and whatever," not really pressuring them to answer more, but
Definitely could have asked more questions, I think, because there's definitely a
yeah.
lot of questions you could have asked within that. But
Yeah,
it's
especially since Scuff came to them for the interview and
yeah,
wanted the interview done. Then like more should have been done.
yeah. Just to clarify, Lucky didn't go to these people. It was Scuff, her husband. He's the one that went to them about this Google Doc that is 90% about Lucky. The Google Doc does touch on Scuff, but not a whole lot. He is mentioned in it, of course, but Lucky is the main person mentioned in that Google Doc. But I think Scuff was just mostly trying to salvage their business at this point. And I mean we'll touch on that also at the end of this. But yeah, do you want to read the first point, or do you want
Okay, so at 9:25 to 11:40 was time stamped about I guess at some festival, a
Yeah,
group
this
of
is talking
people.
about the music festival.
Yes, so there was an acid trip that happened that Lucky confirmed she did take acid, but the main complaint was that she was peeing inside of these people's tents, like their tent, their shared tent, and but she denies it. She says that it wasn't true, but she confirmed that she did take acid, but that she remembers everything that happened that night and that she didn't do that. But she turned and said that another person did take acid, who was the one recalling the event. That person denied taking acid, and while another said that
The other
they
person,
cannot they yeah, they
yeah, they were
can't confirm
unsure.
or deny. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, the whole thing was just mess. So it's yeah, I don't think she was peeing in. I think she was peeing on tents. I don't know if it was peeing in tents or on, but she
I
was.
thought it was something, yeah, in the doc it was like her marking her territory or something,
Yeah, that's
which
what,
is
as if she was marking her territory. Yeah, I think. Yeah. Um.
if
So
she was peeing outside of the tent, then I imagine a lot of people would have saw that then.
oh well, yeah, 100%. I mean, but it's also a music festival. I don't think it was just a furry related music festival. So a lot of
Oh,
people probably just
no.
looked at her and was like, "Wow, she's crazy. What the hell, guys? She's
I
tripping
mean,
balls, man." We're
I think
laughing and we shouldn't be laughing. These are nervous laughters. We get nervous before we even start a podcast. um, but yeah, so yeah, it was a whole music festival. And so Lucky claims that she didn't pee on anyone's tent. or anything, and that she remembers everything during her acid trip. We have the definition of acid, aka LSD. So, LSD is one of the most potent mood-changing chemicals. LSD users call an LSD experience a trip, typically lasting 12 hours or so. When things go wrong, which often happens, it is called a bad trip, another name for a living hell. So, and let's remember, this was also Lucky's first time taking acid. So it wasn't like she was experienced with taking it, it was her first time. So
Yeah.
chances.
A
Sorry.
lot of the things that happened in the doc and then she talked about on the podcast was just outright denial of basically everything. There are some admittance, things here and there, but for the most part, it's all, they said, she said, whatever. And you can't really confirm or deny what happened because none of us were there. But she confirmed to taking acid, and the other person said that they didn't and recall what happened at the event. So I'm leaning more towards like if this was your first acid trip, I'm doubtful that you remember everything that happened while you were on it.
Yeah, it's very rare that you would remember absolutely everything, especially for your first acid trip. And I mean remember everything. As we just read, it can literally last typically lasting 12 hours or so. So to claim you remember all 12 hours, I don't really know. I think you can probably remember bits and pieces, and maybe you put them all together to think that there was no time gap, but I do believe that possibly she definitely could have peed on people's tents and not remember it, and just not realize she doesn't remember it. Um it's really bad. um
Yeah.
But then it goes on in the same point. Next timestamp is 3502 to 3520. It's very short, only because she is saying that even without evidence and not taking what the victim said into account, says that come to the conclusion that that was false, taking Blonde Foxy's word for it. And that's what she said word for word, as if she fully believed what Lucky said about the acid trip and that Lucky remembered it fully, which I don't know how I feel about. I don't know if it was just bad wording on she's part or not, but it just sounded insensitive, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of like brushing it off like, "Oh yeah, you're right. Let's not even bother with this."
Yeah, you didn't pee on anyone's tent, even though you're high off acid. Like you didn't do
Even though
that.
we weren't there and there's people that were saying that you did. You said that you didn't, so we believe you. It's fine.
Yeah,
Like,
that's kind of what it feels like. I don't know if it was meant that way, but that's how I read it. That's how I heard it. That's how a lot of people I think heard it. Um, Also, sorry, I just want to comment on something. Just someone in the chat asking if we do read the chat. We do read the chat from time to time. Usually, I think for this podcast, we probably won't read the chat a whole lot because we're getting into a lot of serious topics with
welcome
this.
to the chat at the end of the
Yeah,
podcast.
I think obviously I'm looking at the chat. So if you say something that like say we're missing or you think is important for us to also read off, um, we'll definitely read it off and we'll be like, oh, well, like we didn't know that or like we didn't hear about that. Um,
Yeah.
but we're definitely gonna look at the chat. If it's something important, we'll bring it up. If it isn't anything important, we usually won't bring it up, especially for serious stuff like this. So
Yeah,
okay,
if you have something to contribute to what we're talking about, like maybe I don't know, we're talking about acid and you happen to know how acid works and you're like, actually that's false, then like we'll pay attention to that.
yeah, we'll definitely
We
read it.
appreciate feedback, but for the
Yeah,
most part we're just trying to stay on topic.
yeah. No, for sure. We did do research on the acid thing. Like we got like I literally we Crump has actually found the definition for it. I just went and copied and pasted it into here, and yeah, we did look into it. And this was the most common definition that was coming up, was that it was a really bad trip when you go on acid, and that it could just be really bad, and that you typically don't remember absolutely everything. So it's why I
I
find it hard
just
to
find it
believe.
Yeah, I just find it very unlikely that she remembers everything that happened on her first acid trip because I've never taken it. I don't know what it's like. I can't confirm or deny of if she could possibly remember anything based off of personal experience. So who knows?
Who
But I
knows?
just find it very unlikely.
Yeah. So then we get into the next point. Um, so this timestamp in the podcast is 2740 to 3345. Talk of Minor and Lucky, with her showing sex toys on cam when they were underage. Um, Lucky tries to claim within that the person was 18, and that she's almost certain. She
Yes.
didn't completely say, "Oh, I know they were 18." She's like, "But," she said, "but I know typically I would only do that if they are 18," as if this is a common thing she does, by the way, which I I don't know that many people that I've never had any of my friends ever get on cam and show me their sex toys, but everyone's different and I don't judge. Unless it's Lucky. I judge very harshly on Lucky. But yeah, she claims the person was 18. Meanwhile, though, in the paragraph right below that one, the person then goes on to say how they were 17 later on at MFF 2015. So, as if implying they were either 16 or 17 when Lucky was showing them these sex toys.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely a minor.
Definitely a minor. And, like, it's just, I don't, if,
You
here's,
just don't flaunt your sex toys to a child.
yeah, and if you didn't know
Just
they
don't
were a
do it.
child, then, like, you should, if you're ever gonna show that, you should, say, hey, what's your age? Like,
Well, that's the other thing too, that I find is really strange of like how comfortable are you with someone enough to show them your intimate objects and yet not know anything about them? Like usually people's name, their age, those are the first things you know about a person. So it's like how do
yeah,
you get around all of that and just like immediately start talking about sex toys and getting so far into a relationship, like a friendship, to be comfortable enough with a person to, wave a dildo around at them and not know their age.
yeah. Like, it's obviously clear you, I think even she said later in this podcast how she was friends with a lot of minors. And it's like, I'm not saying it's an issue to be friends with minors.
No, you
Um,
have to be a good example though.
yeah,
If you're friends with children, you are obligated to be an example, otherwise don't interact with children because children are very easily influenced off of adults, especially the adults that they admire, and they are obviously reaching out to Lucky because they want to be her friend. So don't get all weird and sexual with children.
yeah, it was really weird. And I don't know. They talked about it for a while within that time frame. I think that time frame's like 6 minutes long. Um, but they just kept trying to say how the person was 18, but it's so weird that the paragraph literally right below that one is literally saying that they were now 17 later on at MFF 2015, as if implying they were either very young 17 or 16 when these products were being shown on camera. Um, which, I mean, here's the thing: if they're also on camera, that means chances are you're probably also seeing the minor's face. To me personally, I think a 16-year-old looks like a 16-year-old. Or a very early 18-year-old, in which case it's very uncertain, though. You should still be asking. You shouldn't be so openly. I don't know how to word it. You shouldn't be
I've
so,
seen
like,
Yeah,
wanting to show
I've
it.
seen more adults. I've seen more adults that look like children than children who look like adults.
Literally, yes.
So if someone looks young, don't just assume, oh, they're probably 18. Hey, you want to see my sex toys? Like don't do that.
Yeah. It's just, you shouldn't. Like, I don't know. It's the same with, like, there's a whole thing about, like, showing minors not safe for work art. In my opinion, if they are not 18, you should not be showing them you're not safe for work art. Obviously, if you asked for their age and they lied to you and then you showed it, another story, it's the internet. But if you don't ask at all and it's listed in their bio, or they say they're a minor and you still show it, it's wrong, in my opinion. So this
Yeah,
definitely falls under this. If you either didn't ask and showed it, or you knew and showed it anyways, it's wrong.
yeah, that's why websites confirm that people are 18 before entering because children just shouldn't be seeing that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Especially from idols, because that's where you get into grooming territory, because you automatically hold power over these kids. And when you're turning sexual with them, that's the definition of grooming. You
Yeah.
know, you're using your influence to make them do things with you,
Yeah.
which is gross.
It's nasty. Um so on to the next part. Did you want to read this part?
Um,
This one's about what she had to
oh,
say about the Wattpad.
yeah. Okay, so at the timestamp of 4410 to 44 to 40.
Oh, 1 second. I think Krampus just cut out. Krampus? Krampus's Wi-Fi might have just went out. Oh, Krampus, you're so
What?
okay. You cut out for like a solid couple seconds there. I literally was
Shit.
about to say, there goes Krampus's Wi-Fi.
Oh my god, I don't know why it's being so bad
It's
today.
okay.
But
You were just reading off the
um
timestamps.
yeah, so from 4410 to 4925. Is this the same person as
I
the sex toy one, or is this a different
no,
anonymous?
I'm almost certain this was a different person. I think they went on to the next
Okay.
person. For me, all of these points, when I did the points for this, I'm almost certain it was between each and every single person. So,
Hmm.
um, so I think it's a different person. I would say yes.
Okay, so there was an incident with sexual assault between Lucky and a minor that involved um underage drinking and encouraging a minor to drink and have sexual relations with, uh which, as this victim is describing in the doc and as they're reading it out in the podcast, she Okami has a comment of like, not to be dramatic, but this reads like a fucking Wattpad fanfic, which is completely inappropriate. Like, someone is going out of their way to talk about their trauma, and whether or not you believe that it's real or not, like, you just don't say like, oh, this sounds like a weird fantasy that someone has a fantasy of being fucking taken advantage of by
It's
Lucky.
it's completely insensitive. Insensitive.
Yeah.
But like yeah, so it's like it's talk about sexual assault and but they didn't really even touch on the sexual assault. Like they completely like in that point of the podcast, they completely moved on to the underage drinking part of it. I don't think the person was underage when the sexual assault happened. I think they were of age. However, it was still sexual assault. But there was of course the person like Lucky gave them drinks when they were underage, which I don't think is right
Hmm.
either. Um I think you should be of age to drink. I think there's those laws in place for a reason. Obviously, Canada's laws are different than the States. So, like, if you want to come down to Canada when you're 19 and drink, it's legal. But if you're 19 and from Canada going to the States to drink, it's illegal. Um,
I don't even know if that's true. If they like check your ID and they see that you're from the US, would they still accept you because knowing
yeah,
that it's illegal in your own country?
yeah, because you're 19.
Weird.
Because if you think about it, people from like Nova Scotia all the time will drive up to Quebec when they're 18 to go drink because it's legal in Quebec to
Mm,
be 18. I don't see it being any different if, say, you're going from the States to Canada that you could drink.
yeah,
But,
weird.
anyways, slightly off topic, um, but yeah, it was, I don't know. She said that to me, it was just completely insensitive because, like, that person's talking about something that is a serious act. And,
A traumatic experience, and they're passing it off as some sort of fantasy on like a Wattpad fan fiction. Like, is it's so insensitive and fucked up
yeah.
to just say that to somebody. Like, oh, I don't believe any of your trauma is real. It probably never happened, and it's just some like fetish of
It sounds
yours.
like
Like,
some
no.
fanfic. Like, it's completely wrong. It's It's disgusting, in my opinion. And keep in mind that she said that because we still have to touch on her response video later on. Just remember that she said that. She said that, not Inspector. She said that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I don't. There was a lot of comments made in this podcast that were just so bad. Like I can't. I still can't wrap my head around it. We haven't even gotten to the victim comment yet. That's also like coming up. But
Mm-hmm. There was a lot of insensitive comments made by both Shiokami and Inspector. Although
yeah.
I think Inspector is, like, trumps
Oh,
all of them in my opinion.
he said a lot. He definitely said a lot, and he was definitely, to me, I think Inspector and Scuff interrupted, like,
They're very
it
similar.
was completely manpower in that whole
Yeah.
podcast. I think is the best way to put it. Is that Inspector was kind of talking more than she, even though it was she's podcast, and Scuff was talking over Lucky, even though the Google Doc was talking about Lucky and not
I was
about
talking
Scuff.
talking over Lucky, talking for Lucky,
hundred
completely
percent
ignoring,
like
yeah,
interrupted her.
ignoring She's questions, asking his own questions for some reason.
Yeah, he asked his
Um,
wife a lot of questions, which I was very confused about. I'm like, at this point, would you not know everything? It's like
you're the husband.
you're the husband. This has been going on for almost a year, and you somehow still don't recall some of like I just it made no sense. Um, so yeah. So now we get on to the next point, which is at an hour and 16 seconds to an hour and 7 minutes. So it talking about zoophilia and claiming she isn't one, saying they address that in the video, which is Lucky's response video. Um, however, she never really touched on it at all. In her response video of how she didn't do anything to her animal, she just talked about the feral art and how she had a blocker up. Um, she then saying they only bring it up once and never again. With that section of the whole paragraph long. Um, to me, it just almost sounded invalidating to the person coming forward about it because it was like she's like, oh, it only gets brought up once and that's it, and it's like it got brought up I think more than once in that whole Google Doc.
There
That
was an entire section dedicated to the
there's
zoophilic
a whole
things, and
yeah, there was a whole section at the bottom dedicated to it.
they were completely invalidating this one person's uh one person's input on the doc, just saying like, well, they only brought it up once, so it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. And it's like they still brought it up though. They still witnessed it or were a part of it, or like, you know, they're bringing it up for a reason. It's not something to just breeze right past because it's not as talked about compared to their other subjects.
Yeah, and it's like they don't even really ask about why Lucky drew feral art and not anthro art because like I was very confused by that too. It's like why specifically feral porn? Like why not
I actually,
anthro?
yeah, in our next podcast, I want to touch on that because I have some theories of why that is, especially in the older generation furries.
Yes. Oh yes, we'll have a poll at the end of this podcast as well. For our
I
next
think,
podcast.
yeah,
But but yeah, no, it just like to me she and Inspector just completely were like in like they both just were invalidating like the victims like statements and just almost seeming like they were just taking Lucky's word for it. Even though Lucky has been caught lying more than once now. Like it makes no sense to me because like Lucky has been caught lying time and time of again, has been caught for it, and yet for some reason in this podcast, she and Inspector were just like, yeah, no, that makes sense. Or like, yeah,
yeah.
no, that definitely makes a lot more sense in this person's statement. And it's like it's completely invalidating.
She has backpedaled, lied about things, completely ignored other things, and they didn't make enough of an effort to just try and get a response out of her. And I can't even entirely fault them because even if they did, I know for a fact that Scuff would have like interrupted the entire thing and was like, "I'll answer that for you."
Yeah.
Like,
Or he would have been like, no, 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 let me end it right here because that's literally what he told her
yeah,
on to. And it's just, oh, okay. Um, yeah. Okay. I think we can get on to the next point then. So that's point five for you.
109 to 110, talking about screenshots they have of people sending out DMs to people and enjoying about to talk about Lucky and can't share them because it is private DMs.
Oh yeah,
Will
so this
share
was,
private emails. Okay, yeah.
I don't know if
So
you remember that part of the
Lucky,
podcast.
yeah, Lucky wasn't willing to share private DMs, but had no issue sharing private emails between a customer.
Yeah, because at
Which,
this point it was Lucky and Scuff brought up how apparently um there were 1 second. Yeah, there was DMs being sent out to people to join this private group chat to talk about Lucky. Apparently, and they claim to have these screenshots. They claim to have these screenshots of these people in a group chat or getting these DMs to join this group chat to talk about Lucky for the Google Doc, I'm assuming is what they meant for it. And they're claiming to have these screenshots. They're like, which that would, like, I don't know why they would show it because that would definitely give them some credibility that there was people behind this. But they claim they can't show it because it's private DMs, which
yeah,
I
they
think is
claim they have,
BS.
yeah, they're claiming that they have evidence, but they can't show it because it's private. It's like, one of those like, oh, I did my homework, I just left it at home. Like it's one of those scenarios. But no issue bringing up emails and everything else to support their
Yeah, but they
argument.
can bring up private emails between them and a customer. Um, them and two customers actually, because they brought up two different emails from two different people. But they have no problem doing that and blurring out those names. But for some reason, they can't show the screenshot and blur out the profile and names. Like it makes no sense to me at all. I don't understand it.
Does it exist? No one knows.
I I don't honestly, I don't believe so. In my
Well,
opinion. My opinion.
yeah, she was so willing to share everything in her in Lucky's personal YouTube video. So it's like, why didn't you bring that up then? If that is your supporting argument that you have screenshots, you're not going to show them. You're going to show everything else except for those, which would have helped your argument.
Yeah, they
But
would definitely would have helped the argument a little bit more. But instead, to definitely drive home her one point throughout the whole thing is that it's fursuit makers after her. Um, that's like her
can't,
whole point.
yeah, can't confirm or deny. Which I also want to touch on the whole fursuit maker thing, which are some of the victims fursuit makers? I'd say probably.
Yeah, I think
Like
they. Yeah, I think she said that Ruby was a fursuit maker. Ruby was one, and a few others in this doc were fursuit makers.
yeah, but this is the thing. A lot of these people that are coming forward in the doc were assaulted and had the entire issue was grooming. So if you are groomed by someone that you look up to a lot and they are a fursuit maker, what are the chances that you also turn into a suit maker as an adult? So I think some of these people are probably just children that looked up to Lucky and became suit makers themselves and then came up about their abuse later on in life. And that's why she's saying that it's fursuit makers that are targeting her. And it's like the chances that they turned into fursuit makers because of her and her influence doesn't seem all that far off for me. Like I
Yeah.
think that's a very probable thing that happened. So
Well,
not
like,
all of them are suit makers. I highly doubt it, but for the some that are, I imagine are suit makers because of her influence and her talking to them as children before they realized what was happening.
yeah, and like another thing as well is that like if you are a fursuit maker, chances are you're gonna become friends with other fursuit makers. So chances are they're gonna learn some things about you too, and like you have to realize some of those things probably aren't so good. So
Yeah.
it's like I don't know. It just
Yeah, and
it's so
being in the
weird.
fandom and being surrounded by suit makers and then you become friends with a suit maker, then you're going to be interested in fursuit making. You're going to try it out for yourself. You might get popular. And then if you come out about your abuse, that doesn't mean that you, as a suit maker, are attacking this person. If they were the ones doing stuff to you before you were even a suit maker. Might not be the case, might not be what's actually happening here, but I I believe that
I believe that's the case. It's our
yeah,
belief and our opinion. Let's clarify this again before we get a
yeah.
lawsuit.
I
um,
just don't think that it's that far off that people became suit makers because of her. But it's not suit makers deliberately attacking her and making up lies just to get rid of her business when they were all supposedly friends to begin with. Like that's just
yeah. Oh my. There's just so much. I think we're
yeah.
only maybe we're not even really halfway through this whole thing. But on to the next point. So at 11835 to 12146, talking about being transphobic and how they never were told about Nico coming out, but goes on to say how closed minded they were then, and implying that they did say something to Nico that may have hurt them. Talking about how they also just so happened to have a trans person over at the time of the Google Doc coming out, yet that said person has left the internet, so no one can contact to ask if this is true.
Again, one of the same situations of I did my homework but I left it at home. There's no confirming or denying that this person even exists.
Yeah,
Same thing with the screenshots. They have no proof. They're just saying that, oh, we're friends with a trans person, so we're not transphobic. You can't ask them because they left the internet and you couldn't talk to them
yeah.
anyways.
I'm not saying the person's not true. Furries leave the internet every single day, but it's very convenient that you happen to have a trans person over during this, and it's very convenient that this person also happened to leave the internet, and there's no trace of them.
Right at that time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it's very convenient in my opinion. I don't fully believe it, but it's also my own opinion because I don't know. Um, but they did say that they were very close minded and that implying that they did say something to Nico that may have hurt them. But like my thing is about that is that they claim that they didn't know about Nico coming out as trans. Yet they did say that they said something to Nico that may have hurt them, that may have been transphobic. So I don't know if
Which
they're saying that they knew Nico was trans technically and said something transphobic, or that Nico didn't come out yet and they said something transphobic.
and Nico is the same person that they replaced their art with
Yeah, Nico's
Lucky's
the one that
art.
used to make the ref sheets for Don't Have Cat's Eye, and then they replaced it with Lucky's, which is taking the
Mm-hmm.
victim's art down and replacing it with the abusers. it's this is I don't know. It's completely it's all fucked. This is me nervously laughing, by the way, because I don't know how to react to anything. But I don't know. I just find it convenient that they happen to have a trans person over when the doc came out, but apparently that trans person also just so happened to leave the internet. So I don't know. But
Yeah.
um
Next point.
next is 8.
Yeah. So from 139 to 140, talking about Art Lucky commissioned Ruby to help her out, with Scruff saying something about Ruby in DM, about Ruby DMing him,
Yes.
about having a dream about him, yet shows no screenshots of this conversation anywheres.
Yeah.
Did they just not? It's kind of almost like they were doing an interview. They were aware that like Scuff went out of his way to have an interview, and yet prepared none of the evidence to support his argument or their argument
Yeah. Like he
for what he
literally
was saying.
like he could have just sent the screenshots as they're talking about to she, and then she could have shown them on the during the video.
Um, yeah,
So it makes no
but
sense that she didn't. But she didn't. Um I don't know how, but it's completely insane. But yeah, like Lucky's talking about how good of a friend she was because she helped Ruby out with commissions. and that apparently Ruby DM'd Scuff about having a dream about him, but he can't show any screenshots of that. Which it's also why? How do you not have screenshots of that? Like I don't understand. You claim to have all this evidence, you claim to have all this proof of all this the claims, but you can't show them.
Well, sometimes people delete their messages like obsessively. Like they're just constantly erasing things so they don't want like storage being built
Yeah.
up on their phone or something. But that's why I don't delete anything. I have everything.
But it's like that's the thing about that, like, no offense, but if I ever got a message about someone saying that to me, I would have took a screenshot of that and sent it to probably you. I would have been like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Like, look what I just got. Like, it would have been, in my opinion, I feel like he may have
Well, if
done
they
that,
were
but I'm not
all
saying he did that because some people don't. But
yeah, but if they were all friends at the time, it's kind of like why would they take screenshots?
true, true.
So if they delete their stuff regularly, but they I don't know, they shouldn't delete their stuff. If they're friends, then
They
can't really
shouldn't. But
fault
if
them
it's
on things.
Telegram, people can delete the other side's
Yeah, you can
messages.
delete the
As
other person's
I've
conversation.
learned that the hard way. Which I'm glad I take my screenshots when I do sometimes. Um, but yeah, it's just who's to know if it's true or not, basically. Because I don't know. I wasn't there for this. You don't know. You weren't there for this. Only people that were there were Lucky, Ruby, and Scuff. But the problem is that Lucky and Scuff have been proven to be manipulative liars as it is, so how can you really take their word for it at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not like Scuff would let Lucky
Talk.
truly say anything to her own defense,
Yeah.
anyways.
We're actually coming up to that too. The next point is the one that they got roasted on so hard. And I agree
Mm.
that they definitely should have got a little roasted for this. So from 144.40 to 146, so an hour 44 minutes 40 seconds and an hour and 46 minutes. Talks about Tally's testimony. Scuff brings up a tweet when them with them saying they are a victim and asking how are they a victim. With Inspector, the co-host, saying I don't think any of them are. Um, I I still
It's like
don't
he's
have words for it.
yeah, he's claiming that like he doesn't believe any of them are victims, which there's 17
Like,
people
okay,
involved.
so you're thinking I think there was two people that came up with sexual assaults one. Do you want to tell that to them? Do you want to go tell them, "Hey, I don't think you're a victim." Because that's basically
Yeah.
what you just did to the people who have been groomed, manipulated, like sexually assaulted, like all of this shit you're claiming just they're not victims. Like what is a victim in your mind? That's what I would love to know, in my opinion.
I th-
Cuz
I think
like
Lucky's pets are victims. Her rabbits, those are
oh, those
victims.
that's what he said. That is literally what he said word for word in She's response video cuz he joined the call in that response video. He said that
Yeah, I
word for
know.
word. He said, "I think the rabbits are victims." But it's like yes, I do also believe the rabbits are victims. I also believe the people in this
Oh, yeah.
doc are victims though.
I think there's are victims of animal abuse, grooming, sexual assault, pressure to drink and as a minor, like there's just I think majority of these people are victims, and even in the off chance that someone is lying or maybe over exaggerating what happened, like 17 people with maybe one or two bad apples doesn't mean the entire group of people are like lying or are not victims or like exaggerating the truth just to bring down their business.
Like and they didn't even go after the business. They just went after Lucky.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
they're making it out to be it's personal and like they just are jealous of us because we're so amazing and they're just jealous fursuit makers and it's why.
Yeah. It's so bad and so insensitive to the victims, like in this Google Doc. Like a lot of them obviously are anonymous. I'm pretty sure I just
Anonymous.
pronounced that word. Thank you. I just pronounced it wrong again. But and so a lot of them don't obviously want to come forward by name. But even just coming out as an anonymous source.
Anonymous.
Thank you. I have look, I can't pronounce words for anything. But even just coming out as an anonymous source, like
Anonymous.
we're leaving it, is a big step alone as well. Because they're still putting out their story and they're taking that risk of Lucky finding out who they are.
Which Lucky already said,
Yeah,
like, they
Lucky says
knew the
she's narrowed
majority of these
down.
people.
Yeah, Lucky says she narrowed down most of them apparently.
Yeah.
Which she definitely could have. But I don't know. I just yeah. So we can move on to the next point then. If you want to read that one, that's that's the one where Scuff takes over.
Yeah. So from 149 to 152, reading Raven Fox's statement, and Lucky is talking before being cut off by her husband that who wouldn't let her speak and didn't touch on anything that was mentioned in the doc and just said they were in and out of her life. Scuff brings up what grooming means, and grooming is when you are trying to manipulate someone into doing something later. Lucky tries to talk again a bit later, and he told her it doesn't really need to be discussed and says nothing more about what Raven Fox had to say. So that was mostly just Scuff taking the initiative and cutting off the entire conversation, not letting Lucky get to the point, talk about what she needed to talk about to answer the question. And
yeah, anyone can literally go to those timestamps of an hour 49 and an hour 52 minutes and 28 seconds and literally like I'm not joking, Scuff 110%. Lucky was mid sentence and Scuff's like, no, like stop. No, I gotta stop you there. No. Like I just want to say it plain and simple. Like they were in and out of our life, like, and then they talk about grooming and just him saying grooming is when you are trying to manipulate someone into doing something later. Which, yes, true. The definition of grooming is befriending and establishing an emotional connection with the child, and sometimes a family to lower the child's
inhibitions.
Thank you. With the objective of sexual abuse. And if literally if you watch this whole podcast, Lucky says multiple times that she was really close friends and really cared for these people. A lot of them were minors.
Children. She really cared for these children, and she made it seem like as if she was trying to be a maternal figure towards them, but then straight up just says like, well, I was showing them my sex toys. Like, the two do not go together.
No. It's all messed up, man.
And I fully believe that Scuff constantly cutting Lucky off and not letting Lucky speak and avoiding the questions and avoiding Lucky from answering is 100% damage control. He doesn't want her to say something to make things worse or come out with the truth that makes her look even worse than she already does, or look worse as a couple. So he was trying to control the situation of not letting her speak, which it's what are you hiding? Like, what is going on that you're not letting your wife speak when she's the one doing the interview?
It's as if she was about to say something that he did not want her to say, like at all. He was like, no, don't say that, don't say that. Like, let me talk. Like that's basically literally what he did, because she was touching on. I might have to go rewatch that part again, but I'm almost certain zoophilia was brought up in that same point as well, and like Scuff completely like would not let her talk about it at all, and just went straight to the grooming allegation. It's just like it's nasty. It's nasty shit.
I think the issue with the podcast in itself is that Lucky should have been doing it by herself without Scuff constantly policing everything that she was saying. However, Scuff was the one. Yeah, well, he was the one that wanted the interview, but he wanted the interview just to do damage control.
Yeah, he wants to
So
get his company back, but it's like your company's ruined. No
it's
offense.
gone. It's done. Like,
I mean, not
well,
really. Well,
sadly, no. Actually,
sadly,
no.
no. And again, we'll touch on that afterwards. But sadly, no, it's not gone. It's still really sad. But yeah. Um, so now we get on to the rabbits. So this is at an
Mm.
hour 52:33 to 2 hours, 2 minutes and 17 seconds. Um, brings up that they are yet another fursuit maker, and talks about the rabbits. And talk of the rabbits got brought up, and goes on for a while with she and Inspector glossing over a few bits and pieces of the rabbit story, with Lucky saying how she didn't crush the rabbit with her hands, but she used a technique to kill the rabbit, with saying a rabbit was taken by an owl or something in the night. Um, I mean, like, here's the thing: her whole rabbit, like, she got rabbits, and they completely jumped up to double digits instantly. Like, she did not know how to care for the rabbits properly
Oh,
at all.
rabbits repopulate like crazy. You need to get them fixed.
I know that, and I've never owned a rabbit, and I'm not saying everyone knows that, because obviously a lot of people don't know that. But apparently, she's been
Mammals
really
in
good with animals. She claims to have been close to animals and always loved animals, so you would think she would know this, but somehow didn't.
mammals in general need to be fixed if you plan on keeping like two of the opposite sex together.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're going to get offspring, and rabbits do not have small litters.
No, they have like a lot. And it's
But
like,
letting them get to that point to overpopulate and run rampant in the yard and knowing that they're being picked off by predators despite being pets is just so fucked up. Like, get them fixed or get rid of them.
yeah. Like, Scuff even talks for Lucky again, and says how animals have always been important to Lucky, and barely lets Lucky talk during that whole thing as well. And it's like, here's the thing: like, Lucky apparently volunteered for a lot of places, worked for a lot of animal places, so, and worked with rabbits because she learned that technique from there. So
She should have known
she
to
should
get
have
her
known.
rabbit spayed.
Well, like, she claimed she didn't know it was gonna happen like that. But if you learn, you worked with animals your whole life, you learn how to kill a rabbit very quickly. But somehow you didn't learn about rabbits.
And if she worked with wildlife and knew things about rabbits and animals in general, the overall like knowledge is that prey animals breed like crazy. That's why the term like, they breed like rabbits because rabbits overpopulate so easily
Yeah.
within months.
It does not take long. And it's insane that she somehow didn't know that, because it's
Didn't know, or what I think didn't care,
didn't care.
because if she was employed somewhere to look after animals and allegedly knew about animals and knew how to properly euthanize an animal or dispatch an animal, then you should know that having two animals of the opposite sex creates more animals.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science.
No, it definitely isn't rocket science. It's like, it's just so bad. Everything about this whole thing is just so bad. And I just find it so hard to believe that she somehow didn't know that was gonna happen.
Oh no, there's no way she didn't know. I fully believe she knew. She just didn't care, or maybe they weren't financially stable enough to properly care for them and get them spayed at the time. Wasn't expecting them to repopulate that fast and
Yeah.
for all of the rabbits together to start breeding as fast
Yeah.
as they did.
Here's the thing: if that's the
But
case, they would have said that, and they didn't. They just made the excuse that,
yeah,
oh, we didn't know. But it's like, how do you
how?
not know? Like, especially if you work with animals and you learned a killing technique for a rabbit. How do you not know?
That's like being a hunter and know how to use a gun, but not being aware that deer have antlers. Like that's
That literally, actually, yeah, that's a pretty good analogy. Um,
it, how do you not know?
how do you not know? Like, it just makes no sense. Um, um,
Oh, the next one.
yeah. So 12.
Yeah. So 2 hours in to 2:05. Uh so a person from the dock was talking about being over at Lucky's place. So they know Lucky well enough to be welcomed into their home, where Lucky would always scare their dog and would touch their dog's butt and make like a popping sound to make the dog scared, which Scuff later demonstrated in the podcast of what that popping sound was. So we spoke about this the other day,
Yeah.
where I just think it's really weird because Scuff said that the popping sound was like,
It's
and
like
that
a
was it. It's
or
like,
something.
yeah, it's a very, very little sound. And apparently, like the person in the doc was saying, like this dog was terrified and running away from them and was trying to get out of the rooms and wanted nothing to do with them.
Well, two people
And
said that.
yeah, and they were deliberately scaring their animal, and yet Scuff and Lucky turn around and say, "Oh well, they're just being dramatic, and it was just a little noise, and our dog isn't afraid." Like,
What kind
which
of
is
dog
it?
do they have again? They have it's a farm dog. I forget what
It's
breed
a,
it is.
it's like a Sheltie or a Collie or
That's what I
something.
think. Yes. So it's like
It's a Lassie dog, one
yeah.
of those things.
So it reacts to noises very well. So I could see it reacting to that popping sound 100%, possibly in
Yeah.
that way.
Doing a sound knowing that your animal doesn't like it deliberately to scare them or wanting a reaction out of your animal is like, it's
Yeah.
not nice. Would it kill the dog? No. But
No.
if their dog has issues with anxiety, then why would you intentionally try to make your dog anxious?
Yeah. It's like, here's the thing. If you did the popping noise once and you found out that the dog was terrified by that, if it was my dogs, I wouldn't be making that sound again. But
Yeah.
these two different people claim that
It was deliberate.
it was
They were
deliberate,
in,
and they would do it all the
yeah.
time. And they would grab, like, not grab the dog's butt, that's wrong wording, but they would touch the dog's butt.
I want to
And
know in what way.
I do too,
Like,
because, like, let's be real. Okay, if anyone's ever petting a cat, do you ever scratch, like, the back of the cat, like, up near the butt, but not obviously touching the butt? Like,
base of the tail.
some people claim that as the butt as well. But,
Yeah.
and that's why I want to know in which way did they touch
I
the
think that
dog?
there's two different butts of an animal.
Yeah.
There's above the tail butt and there's below the tail butt.
Yeah.
Which side of the butt were they touching?
And we're not.
Because if
Oh, sorry.
yeah, because if they were grabbing their dog's butt, were they just like they have a really fluffy dog, like that dog is like fin level fluffy. If they were just grabbing it, not even by the butt, which technically it would be the back of the thigh,
Yeah.
to scare it while it's sleeping. Maybe the entire butt thing is exaggerated. Like, oh, they're grabbing
Yeah.
the dog's butt.
Well, I
But
don't know, and that's the thing is that like the two people that came forward about it in the Google Doc, like we're not obviously saying that it's not true. We're not saying any of this isn't true, but I just don't think it's described enough for us to understand in what way they were grabbing the dog's butt.
yeah,
I don't think it was like no, obviously people don't want to describe it because I mean it's a lot.
it's a
no
dog.
no one wants to
yeah,
describe it, but from the way I read it at least is like I'm unsure because I'm reading it in like two different ways and I don't know which way I'm reading it in of like if they were actually grabbing under the tail butt or if they were just grabbing like the side aka the thighs or like the top aka like the back. Like I don't know.
yeah.
If they were scaring their dog when they're
picture
asleep,
it,
it's still not okay in my opinion.
when I picture it of like they grab their dog's butt, I think of it as like behind the like the thigh, like behind the dog.
Like the actual butt, but
No, it's like what is it called?
the thigh.
Their flank? No, not their flank. I don't. Yeah, it's just like the thigh of the dog. Like that makes up their entire butt. They don't have like butt cheeks like humans do. It's just legs.
Yeah.
So where where is the question of like are they saying butt implying that they were like touching their dog sexually or were they just saying butt of like they were grabbing their dog's butt to scare it? So
it's not described enough for because me and you talked about it the other day. It's not described enough for us to understand in what sense or exactly where
There's so many different scenarios that like
Yeah.
that run through my head of like they grab the dog's
Yeah.
butt, like
And obviously this isn't us invalidating what like was said in the doc. Like I think what
well, no, at the end of
yeah.
the day, they were grabbing their dog to scare it. Doesn't matter if they
Yeah.
grabbed it by the fucking head. Like you're intentionally trying to scare your animal. That's fucked up.
Exactly. And regardless, it is wrong. We're just confused
Yeah.
into what way and where were they
See,
grabbing the
if
dog.
Lucky wasn't a zoophile and didn't have zoophile, what's the word I'm looking for? People weren't claiming that Lucky was a zoophile or had zoophilic tendencies.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be thinking of the dog's butt in such a way. I would have been like, oh, she's just grabbing its leg or something. Like, because of her track record, that's what makes me question of like, in what way are they touching this animal?
Yeah. It's very confusing because there's many different ways that you can go about reading it.
Yeah.
And
Anyways, enough about butts.
yes, enough about especially dog butts. I really like don't want to talk about it anymore. Um okay. So next point. Oh yeah, and their only claim that they didn't do that is all they literally said was we didn't do that, and then that was it. And they just go straight back to the popping sound, which again, Scuff kind of took over that conversation. Okay, so enough about butts. I think you read off that one, right? You read off the butt
yeah.
one. Okay, we talked about the
Yeah.
butts for so long, like we just couldn't remember. Okay, so from 2 hours 6 minutes and 22 seconds to 2 hours 11 minutes and 14 seconds. Scuff starts off before she reads anything saying, "Don't read it. Oh, we don't have that much time." Right after she said, "It's short but important one." She reads it and Scuff cuts Lucky off again. Lucky starts to talk about having a European girlfriend and saying she's a very good friend with a fursuit maker, conveniently. As if saying fursuit makers are still coming after her or behind the dock. Which, I mean, Lucky also says it's 5 fursuit makers. There's 17 different people in this Google Doc. Like,
Even if 5 of
come
them were suit
on.
makers, it's like
That's three
they,
times. 3 times over
yeah.
it. Over 3 times. Like, they're not all fursuit makers. Let's
And
just be
again, like
real.
fursuit makers gravitate towards each other because you have a similar interest. Of course, if someone else is a suit maker, you're going to want to talk to another suit maker. And if that suit maker does shitty things to that other suit maker and that suit maker talks about it, that doesn't mean that they're deliberately attacking them just because they're a rival suit maker.
Yeah.
There's not even rivaling suit makers in the fandom, and I find that so stupid. It's like, oh, rivaling artists, rivaling suit makers. Do you know how many people are in this fandom?
Dude, it's insane. There's so many fursuit
Like,
makers, so many artists, there's so many furries. Like, it's.
Don't Hug Cacti, even after all of these things, all of these allegations, the cease and desist, beware, everything that has happened, they are still going to get customers, and their reputation, it doesn't even matter. They're still going to get commissions. People are still going to look up to them. People are still going to be apologists towards them. People are still going to defend them. It's the same Kiro bullshit all over again because this fandom never learns its lesson. And it doesn't even matter. So even if these people are suit makers, there's no rivalry here because regardless of what happens, there's going to be very minimal consequences in terms of commissions for them.
Yeah.
Because they're still going to have a market. They're still going to get business.
Yeah. It's all just. Oh. It's crazy. Um. So there's more. So talking about the con more before Scuff's ass, did you do any of that out of suit? And she says no. For him to mutter, I'm just asking for my own personal, and then he mutters something to a point where I replayed that clip so many times I could not make out what he was saying after that. But um, why would he not know the story at that point? Because that was apparently an open relationship for when she was with Scuff at the time, she said. She was with Scuff at the time. It was an open poly relationship. So how would he not know? And why would he have to say, I'm just asking for my own personal, like, personal what? What are you asking for? Like, your own
Also,
personal
like
what?
maybe
Personal, like,
maybe ask your personal questions on your own time, not when your wife
well, I
is
mean,
being interviewed for her like
this
huge beware.
this doc is almost a year old, I think. And let alone this girlfriend has dated back more years, so you think he would know by now. And I'm not saying he has to obviously remember everything point blank, but it's like I
Let
just
the interviewers ask the interviewees. Don't become the
um
interviewer.
yeah. But yeah, and then Lucky adds right at the end, Goose had a BF at the time, but like what does that have to do with what you did to Goose? Like at all? Like for some reason that as if like that made her sound more like as if that brought more to her story. Like does it matter if Goose had a boyfriend or not at the time? If you were doing anything sexual towards Goose and Goose was not comfortable with, I mean like doesn't doesn't matter if Goose had a boyfriend or not. You still did shit. I don't know what that really adds to the story, but she added that very like she had that right at the end for some reason. I don't know why. To me, it wasn't needed.
Yeah.
But
It's she she rambles, but at the same time isn't allowed to talk about anything
yeah,
important without being cut off.
yeah. So now point 14. So that's for you to read. It wasn't. I don't think it was that long of one because I think it's yeah. It's only a minute long that I did the timestamp for.
Yeah. So 212 to 213, Scuff saying how Lucky's memory is really good, and so that's why she can remember everything that happened. And yet he's not letting the person with the memory of what happened speak about anything. And then for Lucky to say, I found those emails because I remembered their name. But you can also
That's
find the
stupid.
emails by date and year because the year was posted in the doc itself. So there's a chance that she might not have actually personally remembered the people that were in the doc, but we're
Yeah.
just,
It's not like a
they
huge
posted
point.
it.
Yeah, it's not a huge
Yeah.
point. It's just like a small point that I found because as if they're like as if Lucky having this great memory, they're claiming that her finding those emails is an example of that. However, that person in the doc that was talking about that certain um situation brought up the year. So it's like she also could have just went through her emails and looked up that year and found that same thing. Because the person mentioned the suit name too. So it's like you don't need to remember the person's name when you have the suit name and the year. It to me memory didn't really play a factor in that. In my own opinion, I don't think memory played a factor in her finding those emails. I think she's claiming it did, so she can drive home her
Also,
theory of like I have such a great memory, so when I was tripped up on acid, I remembered everything. It's no.
you should also mention about the emails that there are lines missing, and there seems to
Um
be some
yeah.
alterations to
It's
some of
this
the
is
text in there.
yeah, this is my own thing that I found a little iffy about the emails. I'm not saying they're doxed. I'm not saying they're fake, but it's my belief that some of them are fake and that I think some are missing. I think a lot of them are missing actually out of those emails. I think she's not showing every single email. I think if she showed every single email, there would have been stuff in there that she maybe like she definitely easily couldn't like would be able to not show certain emails in her video that would make her look bad. She's only showing the ones that make her look good. And even with
Yeah.
that, some of the emails that I found, it's
There's like
okay. Yeah.
pixelated lines around
Yeah.
the text.
So when you take a screenshot of something and you zoom into it, there's going to be pixels around a text regardless. But they're always around the text. However, in very like some of the emails, not even all of them, just some of the emails, there was a perfect box of like of pixels around the text as if it was cropped into place. And I'm not saying it's fake, but most commonly when there's a box of pixels around a text, it usually means that it's faked. And I just don't think all the emails are correct. I think some of them were faked, and that or she's not showing them all. Because if I think if you read that whole doc, like there has to do stuff between this person and Scuff as well, and Lucky never even like brings up those emails whatsoever. I think she brought up one, but that was it. But there was multiple times I think it got brought up that Scuff was very rude or invalidating towards the customer as well. Um,
Mhm.
there was a lot wrong with it, and It's just my own thing I found. I think I remember seeing someone else on Twitter actually touched on it, I think, as well, saying that some of the emails seemed weird. And I full-heartedly still believe that some of the emails are very weird, that some of them just have a straight box of pixels around the text. And it's just, it's odd to me, at least. Because, especially after like the whole Kiro situation where everyone was like looking at the text messages so closely with the pixels, it's like, you never
Everyone becomes FBI.
literally everyone becomes FBI mode. Like literally that was me like for this whole thing. I think Crumpus went to sleep, woke up, and I had this whole Google Doc with timestamps and points on this 3-hour podcast.
You listen to it
I
twice.
listened to it twice. I had to. I had to. It's really bad. I was preparing for this, man. Yeah, that's my own thing about the emails is I don't even in the emails that I think she did show in her response video, I think they were easily persuaded to have a different narrative than compared to what the storyline actually went with them. I definitely think some of it was weird in my opinion, but yeah, that was
So the
that.
next point is about acid again. It got brought up like 2 hours
Oh
later.
yeah, so this was about did you read the last one or did I read it? I can't remember.
I did.
Okay. My memory is so bad. Yet for some reason I can remember the 3-hour podcast. I can't remember something from 2 minutes ago. God. Um.
Selective memory.
Apparently. So from 2 hours 13 minutes and 46 seconds to 2 hours 15 minutes and 18 seconds. Inspector asking if Todd took acid during the music festival. Two for Lucky to say yes, but in his story he states that he didn't take acid, and that he was older and possibly did it more than once, as if he
So
did
he was,
acid more than once.
yeah, like he's an experienced
Yeah,
acid
I think in his
user.
doc he did say like it's not that I haven't done it before. He just said that he didn't do it at that time.
Hmm.
Them saying that someone said he did take acid, only for Respecter to bring up Bear saying, I think he might have, but I'm not sure. Which is not someone saying, yes, they took acid. That is someone saying, I am unsure. It's almost like they're saying that because Todd took acid, it makes his story less true compared to Lucky, who admittedly said she took acid. And it's like, again, Todd said he didn't take acid. And with that, Bear is saying he doesn't know. Because he doesn't know if Todd took acid or not. In my
And
opinion,
Lucky,
if someone's saying, I don't know, it probably means that they weren't tripped up enough for them to think that they took acid.
yeah. And
Acid
for
is a
Lucky,
trick.
the one who did take acid is the one saying, well, they did too. It's like,
Does it make your
eh.
story any more validate? Like, does it make their story any more invalidating because they took acid? But apparently, you, who openly admitted to taking acid, you're saying, oh, but believe me over this other person that's older and took more acid than me and probably has a random question. I don't know. Can you build a tolerance up for acid? I think we talked about it yesterday.
I wouldn't know.
I don't know either. I don't do drugs. I openly am saying I don't do drugs. I think I did weed
I
once.
know you can, yeah, I think you can build up a tolerance to stuff in general, but I'm not sure, like, if
Well,
he's only done it a
yeah.
couple of times and
Well,
if
because I
that
know
even
it's like people
counts.
with weed. Like I know like for people's first time with weed, like it can go very differently. Like for my first time, I panicked. Like it was also
Oh,
me,
yeah.
grade 7 during lunch. I went back to class. I started bawling my eyes out, being like, "I'm gonna get caught." Um,
Oh my
it yeah. Look, I was trying to be cool. It didn't work out well. Look where I
Tries
am
to be
now.
cool. Tries.
I cried right in front of my science teacher. It was great. Um,
Yeah,
anyways,
that's not
but
suspicious.
no, totally not. Well, she just thought that I like something happened during lunch. She's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Anyways, off topic, but off topic, but not. It's a good example of like everyone's first time taking weed was different, but people can also build up. I wouldn't say like I don't know if I want to say a tolerance for it, but I think that's probably the best word to use. To where it's not going to be as bad the next time, or the time after that, or the time after that. I feel like acid would be the same way, but don't quote me on it, and I'm not saying it is. But
I
it's To me,
I
I
think
would
for
think so.
drugs like that, it would have to be because then if people got used to them so quick, then why would they keep taking it, you know?
Yeah.
It's also like a psychedelic,
Yeah.
so
I'm not saying that you're still not going to be fucked up. I think you would still be fucked up on acid. But I definitely don't think that it would be as bad as like say this is your 10th time taking it. I definitely don't think your 10th time would be as bad as your first time. I think it would
also
be
just
slightly
to
better.
for her to say like, "Oh, they're making it up." Like who just makes up a story of someone pissing all over a tent?
It just who would make
Like
how would someone make that up?
like, "Oh, we should totally say that she did this." Like, what?
Like, okay, they're all in a group chat, right? They're like, guys, I got another story. She peed on tents to mark her territory. We're going with it. Like, does she just think that's what happened? Like, I don't understand. Because
Well,
who
she
comes
thinks
up with that?
they're all fursuit makers conspiring against her, so you know.
Dude, like, that wouldn't be my first thought of a story to make up, is someone peeing on tents. That would not be my first story.
It's just such a random thing for it to happen for her to say was a complete lie.
Yeah, it's so. Oh my god. So okay, I think we can move on to the next one. So we're getting near the end. We have 3 more points left, and then we can move on to She's response video, which is still a handful within itself as well, kind of. Not as
That
much.
entire thing just made me so like, oh, my brain.
It's so bad.
But yeah,
Oh, okay, sorry, just completely random. But poor Lunar in the chat just said I came back to pee on someone. They came back to hear pee on someone. No,
oh,
we were talking about Lucky peeing on tents. And as if like Lucky's claiming that it's fake, but like who would just come up with that? Anyways,
it's
um,
such a random thing
it's
to
so
say that
random.
happened and then completely deny.
Okay, point 16. That is all you.
Um, 217 to 223. They talk about anonymous cat with zoophilia being brought up again, only to gloss over it, and for Scuff to talk about creepy guys in their first con when they first got into the fandom. So yeah, they completely disregarded the zoophilic topic and just glossed it over with like their con experience. They changed the subject
They changed it
entirely.
completely.
Once again, to avoid talking about the zoophile, like the actual pressing matters. They're just like, we're not going to talk about that. Anyways, so there was this creepy guy at a con. Like, yeah. Um, and they get into making friends with people they met at the con and how they wanted to try and sleep with her. She talks about it. She talks a bit about her con days when she was 19, and then to say that she isn't a zoo, Inspector tries to ask her about what the point of that story was about for her and Scuff to both go dead silent and just to say people are going after her with every offensive word they could throw at her.
Yeah. It's like so that's the one time Inspector and she did
Called them
ask
on
them
their
something.
bullshit.
They did ask them something. For them, literally,
Yeah,
they both went dead silent, and Inspector had to talk again, just being like, "Well, like, what was the point of that story?" And that all their excuse was like, "Oh, well, they're just throwing every offensive word they could throw at us," and it's like, no, you completely zoophilia for Scuff to talk about like their con days and about this creepy guy, and it's just like
yeah.
Inspector,
It was a
like,
direct
yeah, sorry.
it was a direct topic change, and Inspector called them on their bullshit. Of
Yeah.
you know, what does that matter? Why are you talking about this? Get back to the point. But you know, Scuff being
Yeah.
Scuff, and
They
what
never
we've
went
learned
back to the
throughout this
point.
entire
Yeah,
podcast.
they never talked about it. Like Lucky just went straight to say like her contests when she was 19 to then just say, "Oh, yeah, I'm not a zoo." Like that's it. Like what was the point of the
That's
story? This story didn't even talk about zoo files and it just talked about your con days. Like what does that have to do with it? Um
yeah. Scuff
it's
just comes across as very defensive and controlling over
yeah.
he just he wants to avoid it, which is ironic given that he's the one who put himself out there to talk about it.
Yeah.
So
Just I don't understand it. Like he knew what was going to be talked about. He knew they were going over the Google Doc, and for some reason was like, okay, at this point we bring up our con days. We don't talk about the zoophilia because we can't talk about it. We talk about our con days. Like I don't know. Um, Anyway, so then the next one, which is 2 hours 23 minutes and 50 seconds to 2 hours 27 minutes and 28 seconds. They bring up the art on Fur Affinity, her husband getting this art of so okay, yes. So Scuff was the one that commissioned this art. I think everyone has seen the art at this point, but there is art around of Scuff and Lucky that's not safe for work. However, it is Lucky not in feral style and her husband in feral style not safe for work. It's it's really nasty. um claiming
Again,
yeah.
it's the zoophile fantasy stuff.
Well, that like I don't know how she can say that isn't. It's like it literally is her husband's in feral style. Excuse my language. Her husband in feral style fucking her while she is not in feral style. She's in anthro style. It's like which is the more human form. And she literally was. The drawing is very clear. And it's like and
It's
if you
also
yeah,
still up on her for
it's
affinity.
still up. And if you look at her husband's paw placements, it's right on her hips. So, um just to talk about her hip markings again. But
Hmm.
yeah, claiming that Scuff was not sure how to commission art. Was she asking if it was artistic liberty piece? Yet Scuff saying again, I don't know, as if he can't tell his character was in feral style and sees nothing wrong with it. Lucky to say I drew art like that, implying she draws feral porn, or she draws feral animals having sex with an anther animal. Scuff saying something about a big debate on what art is and isn't okay. Which I mean, we'll talk about that on a podcast at one point. But
I have a lot to say on that
I
one.
I sort of do too. but but yeah, so it's like he claimed his excuse was he didn't know how to commission art. But it's like at the same time, like how can you not tell your character's in feral style? It's very easy to tell if your character is in feral style. Um so I don't understand that. And for him to say, "Yeah, no, that's good," and she posted it, like she posted, like there was no problem with it. So it's like she and her husband both didn't see a problem with her husband being in feral style and her not being in it.
Fur
It's
Affinity in itself is just like a website dedicated to weird fetishes. Like the amount of like zoophilic stuff, cub porn, just the worst of the worst stuff exists on that website, and nobody cares. Nobody calls these people out. Like there's no consequences for having these weird fetishes
yeah.
that are illegal in a
People should
lot
be
of
called out
places.
more. There was what was that one person on Twitter that got called out for Dottie, was it? Remember
Hmm.
that was like she got
It was
it's
she commissioned
nasty.
art of her like persona in feral style from a picture that was shared by Kiro's case of like a zoo sadist picture.
Of like a dog tied down to like a tree or something. It was
Yeah.
nasty. It was terrible. Um
And so she got like a trace over, not a trace over, but like a your character here styled thing of what happened, like the torture of a real dog being done to her persona as like a kink, a
yeah.
fetish.
Which is just
Gross.
oh my god. It made me sick to look at. And even when I looked at it, it was still the one that like had a box in front of everything. So you couldn't even see anything and I didn't want to. I was like, no thank you. Um but yeah. Kind of off topic but kind of not. But it's like again like I don't know. Like they drive home this whole point that they're not zoophiles, but like you have so much artwork and even when you're asked about it, they kind of tiptoe around the question and then just go back to be like, "Oh, but we're not." But it's like they don't really talk about what was said in the doc when it comes to the zoophilic stuff.
They also just don't apologize for it either and be like, you know what? I've realized that it's wrong. I'm not into that type of art anymore. I don't draw that type of art anymore. I've grown as a person. There's none of that. It's just, well, we're not zoophiles, so it's
Yeah.
okay.
It's like
It's like you can at least
honestly,
apologize.
yeah. So like my thing is like if she would have just came out and said like, "Yeah, know what? I used to draw that and I realize now And I realized back when I stopped doing it that it was wrong. It's why I stopped doing it, because she did stop drawing Feral Not Safe for Work, or at least stopped posting it publicly. Who knows if she still draws it? But if
Yeah.
she would have just came out and said like she realized it was wrong or something, and that
Like
she
all
just
of this would have
stopped.
been
Like
yeah, all of it would have been so much better if she just had been like, I'm sorry. Not send a cease and desist, not deflect all of the questions, not, replace people's art that of the victims that you've hurt, not blame everyone else and victim blame people and, make a joke out of it. Like, if you just had a fucking apologized and said, like, I'm sorry, I know that what I've done is wrong, and I promise not to do that again, and then distance yourself from the fandom, stop talking to children, like, it would have been a much better response than what
yeah,
they did, which was just cause the absolute wildfire of chaos
yeah,
because they did literally everything that you could do wrong
they
is
did.
what they did.
Yeah, I think if she would have came out, apologized, admitted to everything, say she was taking a break off social media, completely leave social media, and go to see help, like go get a therapist, go get a psychologist, like talk to
Yeah,
someone, leave
because they
for
like
like
he
a solid
said that
year, and like come
yeah,
back, maybe come
like
back, like
like with
debatable.
stuff I'm assuming that the person who made the tweet on their official
It
Twitter
was him.
page was
He
Scuff.
said he made it. It's
Yeah,
in the
so
next point actually.
him saying like, "Oh, she's getting help for her internet addiction." It's like, "No, she needs help for everything, like therapy." You should be going and getting actual psychological help if this shit is all true, whether or not she wants to deny it or take accountability for it. Like, just fucking apologize and go get help.
Yeah. If she would have actually apologized, left, went and got help, individually apologized to everyone when she came back,
Mhm.
and if she slowly would have inserted herself into the fandom and shown that she's actually changed, I mean, people don't have to forgive her, obviously. I don't think I would personally either. Um,
It's much easier to forgive a person who actually tries to work on themselves than it is for someone who just deflects everything and make it out that it was all lies
yeah,
and it was just conspiracies and people coming after her. Like, just that in itself shows that there's something not quite right that's going on. Like, their relationship isn't quite right with how controlling Scuff is, and their general response isn't quite right because there's no accountability being taken.
it's all
Just
messed up.
yeah, they both need help,
They
honestly,
do.
and I hope they do get it. I hope they do get it, and
I really do hope
victims
they get it.
and I hope the victims also, like, are able to get help for if they decide that they need it, of course.
Yeah,
Just there's a lot of healing to go on here.
yeah. Um, then we're on the last point with the whole podcast. If you want to read that, but um,
Okay, this is about Cutins.
it's talking about like if they're taking legal action.
Yeah, so 227.
It's all the way basically to the end, like because this is
Yeah,
all they talked about, almost the whole thing at the end.
this is like the finale.
This is the
They
finale.
talk about not knowing Cutins, saying that they don't know them and why they were the one to post it. And Spectre talks about being lucky about Lucky's response video and asks, "Are you taking legal action with Cutins?" For Scuff to start talking and say, "I'll talk about it because I'm the business owner." After Lucky's response video with her saying she is the business owner. Oh yeah, that was the other thing. Lucky also was saying that
She's
it's
the business
her
owner.
company.
Yeah,
Like, they're
me
damaging
and
my
my
company.
company. But then it's
But
like Scuff will come in here and be like, "Well, since I'm the business owner, I'll talk about this." And it's like,
yeah.
which one of you actually is the 100% owner of the company? But like they both are married, so they both technically own the
They're
company.
they're co-owners, but it starts at the beginning, Oh, Lucky is no longer affiliated with Don't Hug Cacti. Then for Lucky to go on, it's my company, and then for Scuff to say, "Well, I'm the business owner." It's like, is she fired? Is it still her company? Is it Scuff's company? Whose company is it? Is she still a part of it? Like, answers.
Please.
um Scuff talks about the tweet and says how they made a tweet just saying that Lucky is off the internet and how DHC is a bunch of people, and never touching on the fact that the tweet said Blonde, Blonde Foxy, aka Lucky, is not the owner of DHC.
Which is bullshit.
Yeah, they talk about the cease and desist with Cutens claiming that what happened was defamation, even though the cease and desist was sent from DHC, and the original document, the Beware, never mentioned DHC. It was all about Lucky. Scuff saying they do not want to sue anyone over this, and talking about what is illegal and what isn't. They talk about legal stuff towards the end before talking about the support emails they have gotten. So people are still sending them supportive
people were sending that
emails.
before the cease and desist. People were saying that before and after the cease and desist, they said. So people were supporting them during all this, which I mean,
again, only proves my point that even regardless of how bad they crash and burn, people are still going to support them and buy from them, and their business is not going to be affected at all.
Yeah.
Like, I highly doubt they're going to have a drop in revenue.
Yeah. It's all like it's way too much, man. But yeah, so that was pretty much the whole podcast. Took us that almost took us an hour to go through that whole thing. It was a 3-hour podcast. It was so long. And
yeah. So what I want to talk about is how Shiokami and Inspector handled them, which again I'll bring up.
Oh, they
I imagine it was I imagine it was very intimidating to be interviewing these people because like tiptoeing around them to not want them to, blow up, get angry, or leave the podcast altogether. And they can't exactly control what Scuff was doing to Lucky and him constantly cutting her off and him being the only one to answer questions. So I can't fault them on that. But the insensitive comments made by both Inspector and Okami is just completely uncalled for. Like, none of them are victims, or this is just like a fucking Wattpad story. Unnecessary.
Yeah. And
Like,
it was completely it was insensitive, it was invalidating, and it was not needed. And it was from both of them. She said some stuff, Inspector said some stuff. It was both of them. It wasn't just one. This is I don't know. The whole thing, I think the podcast definitely could have been done better. My thing is, like, obviously you're having a guest on your show. You want to be civil. You don't have to be buddy in my opinion. I think you can be civil and say, like, hi, welcome to the podcast, obviously. Like, introduce yourself. But you don't
want to piss off your guest.
You don't want to piss off your guest, obviously, but you also don't want to be all buddy. And in my opinion, and I think they did it in the sense because they didn't want them to leave. And I think she did touch on that in her response video. But it was to a point where they were like completely talking about poker. They were talking about golf. Or like they were both going off topic and just getting along way too much. I'm not saying getting off topic isn't a bad thing, but
and also just agreeing with them way too easily. Well, yeah, I guess that's clearly was a false statement.
In the very beginning, like, we literally talked about it, about the acid, for she to go back to that statement and say, we have come to that conclusion that was false. Like, as if she literally took Lucky's word for it. And it's a little bit invalidating to the victim that came forward about that. And, like, to all the victims in that whole Google Doc. Because it's like, they claim they wanted the victims, obviously, to come on a podcast and talk to them as well. But it's like, especially after that podcast, what victim would want to come forward?
Yeah, especially it's like, none of them are victims. Then who the fuck would want to talk to you then?
Or like, it's like
nobody.
It's like a Wattpad fanfic. It's like, oh, we come to that conclusion that is false.
You're making fun of the people that you're saying that you want to talk to. Like, maybe don't degrade the ones that you want. Yeah. That you're saying, like, oh, we want your side too, but let me make fun of you real quick. Like, just, what do you expect?
Yeah.
What do you expect?
It wasn't good in my opinion. I don't think it was right. Yeah. I definitely
also to
Oh, sorry.
What?
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, like, also like referring to our chat here, Scout made a good comment of not to mention Zoo specifically are going to support them from now on.
Oh
Like
well, yeah,
that's yeah, they're gonna get a lot of more support, and it's probably going to be
Zoo Files.
they're gonna attract the wrong audience now.
Yeah, which is just
And
sad.
if they're claiming that they're not zoos and they don't want to be affiliated with zoophilia, well, the zoos are gonna be going for them, being like, "Yeah, you're one of us." Like, ugh.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think that the podcast could have been done differently. I do believe that she and Inspector probably could have asked more questions than they did, because I mean Inspector only really asked one good question. It was near the end. It's when they both went dead silent of when he was like, "What was the point of that story?" And they just both went dead silent. I think more stuff like that could have been brought up, because for a lot of it, like a lot of things definitely could have been brought up throughout the whole podcast.
I
Um,
also probably personally would have asked Lucky personally, like, Lucky, can you answer
yeah,
this? Not like not include both of them. Be like, no, I want to hear
yeah.
this from
I think
Lucky.
my thing is like halfway through the podcast, if that was happening so much, in my opinion, I would have been like, Scuff, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but do you mind if we hear Lucky speak, since this has to do with Lucky? If they both left at that point, then does it ruin your podcast? Yeah. Does it also show how dicks they are and how they're still lying and running away? Oh yeah, it makes them look even worse, which I think
The
is
podcast in
also good.
itself already made them look worse.
The
Like
podcast
they kind
itself
of
already made them look worse, but if they did that, that would have made them look 3 times worse.
now it's just the questioning of like why why does Scuff react like that?
Why was he?
What is
Because he
going
wanted
on?
to regain control over his company, and he epically failed at it. Um. Oh, 1 second. Scout's still talking.
Hmm.
Which is bad for previous No Hakatai suitors, because now anyone who commissions them now is showing support for this, running the suspicion of being a zoo themselves. I've said this many times on Twitter, and I am gonna say it like again. I want to make it very clear. I have nothing against people who own Don't Have Cat Dye suits. Before this
Don't
came out,
harass the suitors.
don't
Don't
harass
harass
them.
the suitors.
They obviously didn't know what was gonna happen when they bought it. And a lot of people started going after people who were getting suits right after this stuff come out. Let's remember, suits take a long time to make. So, chances are someone probably already put down the down payment that is non-refundable. As far as I know from Don't Have Cat Dye's TOS, it's like they have payment
Oh,
plans, but it's like once you pay, there's no refund. So it's like
oh
you can't
yeah.
get a partial refund anymore. So it's
I mean,
like
a lot of big makers too, their wait list is like 4 years long. And you could
exactly.
have, if you put down your down payment and a suit costs like well over $4,000 and you get it and then this comes out, or you get it shortly after this comes out, but your suit was already being made during the process before this was being talked about, then it's not the suitor's fault. It's the
No.
ones who commission Don't Hug Cacti after this
Yeah.
that still willingly give them their money because
Yeah.
they don't think that anything they did was wrong,
Yeah.
or they don't believe it, or one of those people of like, I don't think any of them are victims, those
Yeah.
types of people.
I think if they were to make a pre-made and someone bought that, I wouldn't like that person personally, because I'd be like, okay, you bought that now. Like this is after everything comes out, you bought that.
You're willingly giving them
You're
your money.
willingly giving these people your money. But if it's literally someone that bought it, say a year ago, and this dog came out and 2 months later they got their suit, it's not that person's fault. You just spent thousands of dollars. In my opinion, if I would have just spent $4,000 USD, let's remember, four thousand
To
dollars
us, that's a
USD
lot.
to us, that's a lot because we're Canadian. That's like 6 grand. 4,000 USD on a suit, and all this shit came out. Are you gonna waste your $4,000 that you can't get back, or are you gonna get the suit that you paid for? Because regardless, it's either you walk away with no suit and no money, or you at least walk away with the suit. Like, you get one of them. You get one or you get nothing. In my
I also
opinion,
saw
like,
some
I wouldn't be walking away
Yeah.
from $4,000. No offense, but
I also saw some makers, and kudos to them, the ones who were offering up refurbishments on Don't Hug Cacti heads so that you can still keep your suit and keep your character and everything, but they'd make alterations so that it doesn't look so distinctively Don't Hug Cacti.
Yeah, and I know a lot of makers were saying like, because Don't Have Cat's Eye has the thing where they would put a patch of DHC on their butts. It was always on the butt, may I add.
I thought it was on the back of the ear too. I've seen some with it was on the ears.
No, I think most commonly it was on the butt.
Oh, maybe.
But maybe it was people suggesting they want it on the butt. I don't know. Anyways, but I know a lot of makers were saying like, we'll take that off for you and put a new patch of fur on for you. Like a lot of
Yeah.
makers, like I think Phoenix Nest, like Carly, just bought a Don't Have Cat Dye suit recently. It was one someone was selling, and so they bought it and they completely ripped off the Don't Have Cat Dye patch and put new fur over it, being like much better.
As they should.
As you should. I know a lot of people have been ripping those off. I know a lot of people have been burning stickers. I did that. I burned a Don't Have Cat Dye sticker. I still have a Don't Have Cat Dye pin that I don't know what to do with.
Sledgehammer it.
That's what I'm thinking. Sledgehammer. Because and let me clarify the reasons the reason I have these is from FE 2019 where they were the guest of honor. It was my first convention and I shoved all that shit in my con drawer and never looked at it until recently. And when I did, I was mortified and I instantly burned the Don't Have Cat Dye sticker. So I was very proud of myself that day. I was like, go burn in hell.
It makes me feel bad about my con book because it's like I like keeping all of my con books and like memorabilia from cons, but they're all across it. Yeah, they're all across it. They're everywhere in it. And it's like, oh no, do I get rid of my con book?
Should I burn
Give me some opinions. Should we burn our con books just because they have donut cacti in them?
No, you know what? I'll draw mustaches and I'll scratch out their faces. That's what I'll do.
Just black them out. Just completely just rip their pages out in particular.
They're on the front cover. I'm gonna have to rip out a lot of pages, but I'll burn them all. I'll burn them all. It's fine.
Their suitors are on the front cover, just regular suitors. I don't know if Lucky is actually on the front.
Yeah,
cover.
She's on the front with her husband. I think that's the team of them because I think that's 5 of them on there. I think that's actually the team that's on the front because I think they said they had to take that photo before the con.
I don't know if I don't think the entire team is bad. It's more so just Lucky.
I mean, it's the entire team still working for them.
Well, I imagine like one's like a reference sheet maker.
That's Lucky.
I don't know. No, the old one.
Oh, Nico. No, Nico's not. But no, I'm talking about the first two makers because he said they're a team of 5, so it's like.
I don't even know who those people are.
I don't know either. They said they're local, so they said it's a small family thing. So I don't know. Anyways, we completely just went off topic slightly, but not fully. We're still obviously talking about Dog Cat Dye. But yeah, just don't harass the suitors. And also, I wouldn't even say don't harass anyone that buys a suit from them afterwards either. Computer, shut up. Sorry. Oh my god. Sorry, it's scaring me. I have no idea if people could hear that or not. I think they could.
I didn't hear it.
I don't think you could, but I think the stream could. That's why I was like, computer, shut up, because I feel like that was going to be heard. It's just my OneDrive being like, you're 99% full. Yeah, they heard it, because Lunar just said, bing! Okay. But don't, I also I want to say, don't harass anyone that buys a suit from them afterwards. I'm not going to support anyone that buys a suit from them afterwards. I won't personally. If I see a pre-made go up and I see someone buy it, I will not follow and be in contact with that person. Because in my opinion, they just supported a pedo, zoo, groomer, everything.
Just block and move on.
Yeah,
you don't need to start arguments with people over the internet.
You don't need to comment. You don't need to say anything. Sometimes it is better to just say nothing and walk away. That's all you have to do.
Also, like, a lot of the people who are selling their Don't Hug Cacti suits for cheaper than retail value now than they usually would.
Because they won't sell.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. A lot of these new buyers of Don't Hug Cacti suits are going to be children. Don't harass the children who are buying Don't Hug Cacti suits because most likely they're not paying attention to Twitter and the drama and knowing what's surrounded by the Don't Hug Cacti drama. Like, if a child buys a Don't Hug Cacti suit because it's cheap on the dealer's end because the adults know the controversy around it and don't want it, don't go after that kid saying they're a pedophile and a zoophile. They're not going to know what that means.
Yeah.
Even if they're 16, like, just
Don't
Don't harass the people buying the
well like
secondhand ones. Don't harass the people, like,
yeah,
just don't
like
harass people.
Scout just brought up a good thing, and IRL two just don't interact. It's the same
Yeah.
when cons start back up. With I think they're gonna starting back up in 2022, in my opinion, with how the vaccines are rolling out. I think they are. I don't know, but like even at cons, if you see a Don't Hug Cacti suitor, like, and you know that say they bought that suit after all the stuff came out that was a pre-made, just don't interact with them. If they say hi to you, don't be mean. Just say hi and just walk away. If they ask for a photo, all you have to simply say is, "Oh, sorry, I'm tired. I'm going to the Headless Lounge." Just walk away, be civil, be nice. You don't have to be rude. Now, if it's Blonde Foxy, I mean, I can't see her showing her face at a con ever again. If she does, I'm just, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't say harass her. Don't do anything mean towards her. Um,
Well, with fursuits, it's so easy to hide your identity. Like, she could easily be at a con next year and no one would know because she could just have a suit made by someone else
oh
of a character we
crap.
don't know. You would have no idea.
Well,
Same thing with Kiro. You wouldn't know.
I'm not making friends with people anymore. I can't
Just
without
don't
seeing their
go to
face now.
cons.
I have to see their face now. Um, anyways, okay, so I think we're done with our little tangent there. Um,
Mhm.
so now something I want to talk about first is so she on Twitter, she did something interesting. I don't know how to describe what she did, and I'm not saying she can't do this. It's her Twitter account. She can do whatever she wants. But can someone explain to me, and I'm going to show the screenshots now. Can someone explain to me why she quote retweeted every single comment and not just reply? It just,
I don't have an answer for that.
and I don't understand it. It's like she's saying that this got made so public, but it's like I wonder why. And it's like literally if you just looked at the last two screenshots, she just replied to this cast person now 4 times. Um
And also to be like, it's been made so public. Well, yeah, you're talking about
yeah.
the most controversial person in the fandom
Yeah.
right now. What'd you expect?
And these are just some of them. If you guys want to see all of them, go scroll through. I only took 3 screenshots. If I wanted to take picture of every single quote retweet, I would have had 30 something. I don't know. Like it was a lot. That may be me exaggerating, but it was like I mean, Crumpus was literally on a call when I was sharing my screen, scrolling down. Like I had to scroll down violently to get to the post. Um but
Maybe it's easier to keep track of things that way. I
I
don't know. I'm new to Twitter
I would have
myself,
just
but
replied because then you can see the whole conversation that way. But if you're quote retweeting it, you're not seeing the whole conversation one after the other anymore. You got to go find your quote retweet that you made, go back to the new comment they made, go make a whole new quote retweet. They make another comment, go back to the quote retweet, see what it said, go back. Like there's no point. There's no point. There's no point in it. You can just reply to the comment. I don't see why they had to quote retweet it. It's like maybe this is me overthinking it, but it's like it makes no sense to me of why it was quote retweeted. Like I don't understand what was the point behind it. She says that she wasn't mad, but I my opinion, I think she might have been mad. But I
I
don't
mean,
know.
judging off of her most recent response video, I think she's pretty mad.
Yeah. So let's touch on the response video because we're at 2 hours. So let's touch on now the response video. So she went live and said the title of the video is "Furry Twitter is Mad," and this is the last time I'm talking about it. Which is it was the video was not great. Um, some things that she said I agreed with. Some things she said I did not. I'd say most things she said I didn't agree with. Um, but the very first thing that got brought up in the video, which I think is just so Inspector joins the call and talks about the victim comment and how because she didn't say it and Inspector did, that it doesn't mean she agrees with it. Yet she let it be said on her podcast and said nothing about it at the time.
And
And
again, said nothing about it, that she did not agree with it. She
yeah,
just said, well, he said it, I didn't.
yeah, she also
That's
still
it.
didn't say if she agreed with it or not or disagreed with it. Meanwhile, Inspector would just straight up said, and I still stand by it. I don't like Inspector. I'll say that personally. I don't, and I think that's fine. He doesn't have to like me. I don't have to like him. It's Gucci. I'm good with that. But it's it's weird that she said that because she's like, oh, well, I didn't say that. And it's like, okay, do you want to touch on the this is like a fucking Wattpad fanfic or the oh, we don't have to talk about that anymore. Like we clarified that's false. Like do you forget the comments you made in your video? Like you still said shit. Like I don't understand how that's her one thing of like, oh well, I didn't say that. It's like, okay, but you said these other things that are still pretty bad that she didn't
Yeah.
address. Yeah, she didn't address any of those comments in her response video from what I've watched. I only watched her response video once. I will say that. I didn't watch it twice.
I genuinely could not get through it because the amount of times Inspector
Oh
completely
my
cut
god.
her off.
The
I was
chat. The chat was literally saying, "Dude, let her speak." One person literally said Scuff 2.0. Like
yeah, it was so terrible. I've never like I kind of sympathize with her because she even you could tell that she was even getting pissed. Like
well,
she couldn't say shit
there's
on
one
her
point
own
in it that
fucking
we literally watched. She rolled her eyes, like she got
yeah.
frustrated. This isn't us making fun of her. This is literally just us saying that
No,
Inspector
like I am
interrupted her a lot.
no, like yeah, if she is watching this, which I doubt it, but like I am so sorry that you like that man did that shit to you. Like that is not okay.
It's your podcast. It's literally your podcast. You should be talking more than anyone. It just makes no sense. No,
That other one that came on there, the lovely coyote guy, he was a
I
godsend.
loved
Like
him. I have to say, I'm just saying, yo, dude, if you're watching this, you made great points, you made valid points, and I agreed with you with what you had to say. I just want to say that. I think pretty much what that guy said is pretty much what we're just about to say about her response video. Um, because even he was like, okay, but yes, but you have to see it from this point of view, and
yeah.
like he was very respectful and kind about it. So like I agree with him about a lot of points he brought up. Um, but
Like
yeah,
you can have different opinions,
you
but
can have opinions,
you got to
basically.
be respectful about it and saying like none of them are victims is not the respectful way to go
Yeah.
about having like a different opinion.
Yeah, I think if she would have went on there and said, now obviously I didn't make that comment, Inspector did. However, I want to clarify, like, if she did or didn't stand by that comment, I would hope not. She would say, I do not stand by that comment. It was my podcast. And I want to make it clear now, as I didn't then, that I don't agree with it. If she did something like that, I probably would have been fine. But instead, she just didn't say if she agreed with it or not. All she drove home was like, I didn't say that. It's like I'm trying to think of like a good example. It's as if like a kid taking the last piece of cake and saying, "I didn't do that." Like that's
no,
that's my
no,
imagination.
no. It's more so like you're an accomplice to a crime, but you're not the one who actually stole it. Therefore, you're fine. You didn't do it.
Yeah.
Like you were there.
Okay, you're an
Like
accessory to murder, but you didn't really murder someone. Oh, well, I didn't do it. It's like you're still a part of it. Regardless, these are really bad examples, really extreme examples, but they're examples. We're not saying, okay, I just want to clarify, we're not saying she's a murderer, that she's committed any crimes.
oh God, no,
Obviously
no.
not. We're just trying to find a scenario that makes sense to people. I think a lot of people watch crime shows. I do. I kind of like them. I think they're fascinating. Um, anyways, so do you want to read the next part? It's like the about the victims coming forth.
Okay, so it talks about how they did ask if victims wanted to come forth, but they only before the podcast with Lucky and Scuff was released publicly. So Shiokami said in a previous video before the Lucky and Scuff podcast that if victims wanted to come out and talk to her, they could. But it's like, how would they have been aware that you wanted to talk to them? Like, I don't know how the chances of them watching her podcast and also wanting to share their story with a complete stranger and like go on a podcast and talk about their experiences when a lot of them were anonymous for a reason. And then for the like and then to just kind of blame them in the end of like well, they didn't talk to me, so that's why I only talked to Lucky and Scuff. And it's like, well, maybe they weren't aware, or maybe you should have made it more public on Twitter, like, hey, I got contacted by Lucky and Scuff. If any of the other people want to come and like talk to me, then they can.
Yeah, and
But
I 100% agree with that too. And I think that's what was the other guy that was Lovely Coyote? I think his name was. That was the guy
yeah,
that we
Lovely
agreed with.
Coyote.
He was sweet. I think he even touched on that point too. And like my thing about it is that like yes, she technically did give them a chance, but however, it was in a past podcast. The only reason that people got mad was because she had Lucky and Scuff on her channel when they already have a public platform, and at that point, she didn't ask for victims' opinions or if victims wanted to come on a separate podcast. In my opinion, if I was in her situation, Scout. Lovely was lovely. Lovely was lovely. Um, okay, sorry. In my opinion, if I was her and I say knew I was gonna do a podcast with Scuff and Lucky, I would have went on Twitter being like, "Hey, I am doing this podcast with Scuff and Lucky, going through the Google Doc. I do also want to put it out there. If any of the victims want to come forth on a separate podcast to also go over the Google Doc, I am more than happy to do that. I think if she did that, this wouldn't have been a problem. But sadly, she
Yeah.
didn't. And
The whole reason why the Lucky and Scuff podcast blew up was because Lucky and Scuff were in it. So use that to your advantage and use their names to blow up like a Twitter post or a tweet or whatever the fuck people call it to like gain attention that way, not in a podcast that people aren't fully aware of.
exactly. So
Like,
like people probably didn't watch your last videos or your past ones where they're like hours long. When you said that one thing about victims wanting to come forward, I think like halfway through that, like it was a 2 hour podcast before the Lucky and Scuff one that she showed a clip of. Which like yeah, she technically did give victims a chance to come forward. I'm not saying she didn't. But I think this could be taken more as a learning experience.
or even in the description or like a pinned comment on the podcast with Lucky and Scuff
Yeah.
being like, if you were involved in the Google Doc and you want to come talk to me personally, I like open arms. I am open arms. Just come to me, you know,
I'm
like
going to check the description really quick. I'm almost certain I think I've read the description and she didn't ask like if victims wanted to come forward, obviously, like blah 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 blah. I don't think she did that. I'm just double checking for my own sanity. Yeah, no, it was
so
just the doc, Lucky's response, smear campaign article, Brony art buy, and it's just her ads. Like she never said at all in that she said if any victims are have watched this video and want to come forth with their stories, then please contact me at blah blah blah. Like she could have done something like that in my opinion. Like even if it was in the description of that video,
yeah.
it still would have been something. The problem is that she did it in a past podcast before she announced that she was doing this podcast with Lucky and Scuff.
Before her channel blew up,
Yeah.
essentially,
Well,
by
her channel did kind of
interviewing the
blow
most
up. Yeah.
controversial.
Her channel did kind of blow up, but it definitely she got a lot of recognition about the Lucky Coyote stuff was when she announced she was doing an interview with Lucky and Scuff. And then people watched it, and then that's when crap like shit hit the fan. I'm trying not to swear, but I'm like, why am I trying not to swear? That's when shit hit the fan, like 100%. Um, yeah, then it talks about the claim of Lucky being a zoo and how feral art alone does not make someone a zoo. And only thing I'm gonna say that is debatable. It's yes,
It's very debatable.
it's very debatable. I definitely think, in my opinion, I think if someone is drawing feral porn, like obviously of animals and feral style doing something, I think people are having that fantasy of that, and it is a thing of zoophilia or zoophilic tendencies.
If you're up for a friendly debate right now, I'm going to disagree.
Oh,
Because I'm going to say one word. Kovu. The amount of porn that that
oh,
fucking
don't.
lion has that's feral is unreal.
Oh, well, I
But
don't agree with
it
it.
is yeah, but it is the company. It is Disney, it is DreamWorks, it is all those companies that intentionally make those feral animals sexy. They did it on purpose.
Okay.
So I don't know. Like it's such a weird
I don't think they made
Drawing.
them sexy. I think they made them hot.
Well, those are the same thing. You just
Okay.
tomato, tomato.
I mean, okay, there's a difference between making them seem that way and people drawing them that way, though. Because then that's fantasizing of one, a child movie, that is meant for children and drawing that character in sexual ways.
But what about the ones that are intentionally sexualized in the movie itself? Like All Dogs Go to Heaven 2. Sasha, the golden retriever. She was like singing and being very provocative intentionally to get money to go towards this child she was raising, this human child. It's it's the same thing. Like they intentionally make them that way, so I can't entirely fault people on being like, "Oh, I like that." But
I mean,
issue with
it are
Blonde Foxy is like it's her dog supposedly
well, my only
that the
thing
porn
about
is
that
of.
the dogs go to heaven thing is that yes they portrayed her that way.
Well, they
Do I
intentionally
yeah
sexualize
do
their own character.
do I agree with what Disney does with that kind of thing? No, I don't agree with it in my opinion. I
Well,
not fully at least. Especially that like I know what character you're talking about there. I kind of don't agree with that character still and how it was portrayed. But at the
yeah.
same time it's still it wasn't obviously they didn't show any parts and didn't show anything graphically. But some people will draw very graphic art of feral porn of these characters, and I think that's what it
Oh, well,
gets.
no.
That's when it gets into the zoophilic tendencies. I think, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
But I'm also not surprised that people take the characters that way because they were intentionally
Oh
sexualized
no,
by the company in
yeah,
itself.
I'm not saying I'm surprised
So,
people take it in that way, but this will be a discussion for another day for sure.
yeah. So, like,
Definitely,
I'm not surprised,
I'm
but
not surprised. Do I think it's right for people to draw them that way? No. Am I surprised? No. Do I agree that Disney did it that way? No. I don't.
they should have made. Oh man, I was about to say something else really controversial. They should have
Please
made
don't.
Kovu ugly like Scar. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that.
A lot of people really like Scar.
There's some Scar simps out there.
Okay, like yeah, there's nothing wrong with I think the word simp is taken too literally. Like for me, League of Legends, I like the character Echo. I think he's hot. And then I found that
I
the
don't
character and then
know
I
who
found
that
that
is.
I know, and then I found out the character was 16.
Oof! Oh no!
And obviously I didn't know that. I'm 20. Let's clarify this. I am now 20. I think it was 19 when I found out he was 16. Um But let's also remember, do I think of him sexually? No. Do I ever think of drawing art of him sexually? No. Do I just think he's hot and it's a fictional character? Yes. I don't
It
see
just
a problem with that. And that's the same with Kovu and Scar and people like that are furries and they're like, whoa, he's hot. And people say that don't think of them sexually, don't draw art of them sexually. They just think they look hot. And they're fictional.
yeah.
If this is a real 16-year-old and you're thinking that way, that's when I think it's wrong. Because I'm like, okay, that's a real person. You gotta step back. But
Yeah.
if it's a fictional character, it's like My Hero Academia. Literally, is the greatest example. People simp for those kids for so hard, and they're like 15, 16-year-old kids.
Oh yeah, when
I
I
don't
was
simp for any of them. I just like Dobby, and he's 20.
but yeah, like when I was in I think high school, I was really into Soul Eater and like those characters are all children too, but there's so much porn of them out there
Yeah,
made
I
by
don't agree with
adults.
people. Yeah, I don't agree with people drawing porn of like especially My Hero Academia. A lot of people draw porn of them. And I'm like those are literally 15, 16-year-old like fictional kids. Like yes, it's fictional kids, but it's like you're still
Because that's what people use for the excuse of it. Well, it's fictional. They're
but
not
it's like
real, so it's not.
they're still kids.
Yeah. Which is also the whole thing with like the Lion King characters. It's like, well, they're fictional, they're not real. So it's like, where do you draw the line of fiction and reality of what's considered a fantasy and what's just considered just
Yeah.
straight up porn
Yeah.
of,
I think if you're
yeah, I
taking
don't
it
know.
I think if you're taking it to the point where it's not safe work, I think that's when it's going too far. In my opinion.
Mhm.
Okay. Anyways, to continue, did you want to read the next part? We already did the
Um,
feral art one. It was Inspector saying.
Yeah,
It's
well,
really short.
we already kind of talked about that. Inspector saying he doesn't think the sexual assault
Oh, well,
claims are
true.
true.
Yeah,
He just went over that again.
pretty much.
So, talks about how they were buddy buddy with them only to make sure they didn't hang up the phone. But they could at least ask more questions or contradict what they say in the tweet that Don't Hunt Cacti made.
Yeah, because like that was just like as an example. It's like because Scuff brought up the Doha Katai tweet, but never brought up the fact that he said Blonde Foxy is not the owner of DHC. It's like you could have brought up, oh, but did you not also mention that Blonde Foxy is not the owner of DHC yet in her response video, and now you're saying she is the owner of the company? Like that would have been a good question to bring up. If they hung up the call right then and there, obviously they're
I
running
would have
away and
just
hiding from something.
yeah. If the people hung up, then, like, that wouldn't really do
Yeah.
anything bad on you. That's more so bad on them of, like, they just can't handle an interview that's not, geared towards making them
Yeah.
happy.
And they literally said at the beginning of it, like, ask us whatever questions you want. So, like, if you ask them a question and they ran away from that question and left the call, then it's like, to me, that makes them seem guilty. 100%, in my opinion. I think if they're willing to hang up that quickly and run away, it's making them seem guilty. And I'm not saying you can't, I'm just, the way they acted in that call, they were way too buddy buddy, in my opinion. Like, way too buddy buddy.
Yeah,
I
well,
think
like we already said, they were talking about golf and, like,
like card
poker and
games,
shit.
like and like it was. And obviously, you can get off topic. Like, I'm not saying getting off topic isn't a bad thing, but when it's like when you're interviewing someone about these serious claims, I don't think it's the greatest time to get off topic. Having like the little conversations, like yes, that's fine. Like me and Crumpus have been doing that now. Like we just talked about the whole Disney thing. But it's still somewhat also related about the feral art and like the not safe for work of like these Disney characters and everything. It still had to somewhat do with this whole situation. But
Yeah.
some other things were like they were literally talking about a card game. Like what how do card games relate to any of this? How does golfing relate to any of this? Um anyways, but yeah. I think they definitely could have asked more questions. I think they definitely had to be civil with them. Um but they didn't have to be so friendly as they were, especially where they were just like, yeah, no, that makes
Friendly
sense. Like, oh yeah, no, we
yeah.
agree with that. Like they literally were like agreeing with everything. I don't want to
Yeah,
say
they
they
were
said it.
friendly and forgiving of their,
Yeah.
like, bullshit answers.
Yeah. Like I don't want to say that she and Inspector said, "Oh yeah, no, we believe you 100% for there," cuz they didn't say that. But they definitely didn't disagree and they just said, "Yeah, no, that makes a lot more sense." Or, "Yeah, you know what? That makes sense and that lines up." Like they weren't contradicting it and they weren't saying, "Oh, well, yeah, maybe." Like if they would have said that, then that's not agreeing or disagreeing and that's something different. But they were just like, "Yep, that makes sense." Or, "Yep. Oh, yeah, no. Oh, yeah, no, that definitely that lines up." Or that story makes more like they weren't disagreeing. They were just fully agreeing. It's kind of bad.
Mhm.
Yeah, saying how they did realize Scuff was taking control or changing conversation, but how they didn't want to say anything to upset them or make them leave.
Let them leave.
Let them
Let them
leave.
leave, because then that would've just shown that they were
Like,
guilty and that, like, they can't
yeah,
handle conversation.
obviously you want a podcast. So I would say after an hour, here's would have been my thing. If I did that, I probably would have been texting. Like, if this was me and Crumpus, I probably would have been texting Crumpus on the side, being like, okay, when we hit the 1 hour mark, if he does it one more time, I'm just going to ask him, hey, can we hear Lucky speak? And if they leave,
Mhm.
then it's like we have an hour of a podcast, one. And two, you can watch them literally leave and run away from the problem, which kind of makes them look guilty. So you still get a video out there with them and of them, and you still get to see how horrible and manipulative and liars they are, and how they're willing to run away from the problems. Um, so I think that could have been something that was done. I think the whole podcast with Doha Katai definitely is a learning experience. Maybe I think they should definitely take all of this with a grain of salt and learn from it. Like, think about it, learn from it, and be like, yeah, no, we could have done that better. Or, yeah, you know what? That probably would have been a better idea instead. Like, just to think about it, I guess.
And what we know is that who didn't learn from their mistakes is Don't Hug Cacti, because they are now back posting on Instagram and deleting comments like nothing ever happened.
Are we at the end? Oh yeah, we're basically at the end.
Yep, we're at the end.
Oh yeah, also just side note, also she said that she will not apologize for anything in the podcast.
Mm.
So yeah. But yeah, as for what Crumpus just said, as of recently, let me I have to go on my phone to see the dates because when you go on your computer, it just tells you so many weeks ago. And
They started
I
they started
can't do math.
posting like a week after the podcast was
Yeah.
released with Shiokami.
So the last suit that they posted on Doha Kate's page was January 8th. The next suit that they posted was March 3rd, and that was after the podcast. So if you look at every single comment on the Doha Katai's posts, there's no bad ones whatsoever. Um, like at all. All the bad comments are gone. And there's someone on Twitter that literally purposely left like not a bad comment, but just like a contradicting comment, and that comment is also gone. All of them are gone. They're only leaving the good comments up. And a lot of people are supporting them still.
Yeah.
And it's
A
kind of sad.
shocking amount.
Yeah. And,
but also not shocking.
Yeah. I do want to say, I'm never gonna deny it. Their suits are cute. And I never denied it. But it's like not cute enough for me to go and comment and say, "Oh my god, I love it," because I know they're horrible people. I won't do that.
They're not cute enough to blindly still support them
exactly.
despite everything that they've done.
Yeah, their suits can be adorable and absolutely amazing. Doesn't mean I'm gonna support them. Doesn't mean I'm gonna like them. I can think the designs are cute. I can think the character, the suit is cute. Doesn't mean I have to like the company. Doesn't mean I have to like them. I can still hate them. I can still be like, go fuck yourself. Maybe I shouldn't. They may actually do that. Sorry, gotta had the joke. But yeah. Oh. Oh. Sorry.
Huh?
I was reading one of the comments. When will you be taking commissions again? Commissions will reopen this summer. So usually
Oh
when a
my
company
God.
so usually when a company opens, it means that they are done with their previous commissions. So
Not
not fully,
necessarily,
but
but
most of the time, especially with DHC, I think they're probably going to take a slight break and then open up again. Which is,
slight break. The summer is in like a couple of months.
but that's what I mean is that they might be done with like because they just posted a day, and a day in a row, and they usually don't do that, which means they were making suits from January 8th till March 3rd. Still,
Damn, they were on it.
so I think what they're gonna do is
Lay low.
I think this is gonna be the make or break. Is that when they reopen the summer, that's when we're gonna see who's gonna commission from them afterwards. And I'm not saying every suit. I'm saying once they open in the summer and once they close. I'm giving it. I want to see if any suits come out very recently after that. If suits come out recently, it means they were still working on suits. But if suits don't come out recently, like say a month, and then they start posting suits or something, because they said it only takes them like a month to make suits sometimes, like a month
Jesus
or two,
Christ.
and then they start making because it's 5 of them.
Oh, true.
Yeah. If it takes a month or two and then they start posting suits again, that's when you know it's the new batch. And that's when we can start being like, okay, we don't talk to that person, or okay, we don't like that person. Like that's when you just don't talk to people. That's when you learn not to talk to certain people. Also another thing, just random, something that I loved and I talked to you about it as well is the Doha Katai suitors, because there used to be this thing of like the daily DHC, right? And a lot of the fursuiters stopped doing it, obviously, because all this shit started happening. I love the new hashtag screw the crew. I still love it. It's still going, actually, I think. And it's all the Doha Kate suitors posting pictures of their suits saying screw the crew. And I think it's awesome. Because that's showing that they don't stand by their maker.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I can't even imagine what it'd be like in that position of owning a suit from somebody that got exposed for being
I think
like
I would sell it.
and
I'm not saying everyone has to do that. For me personally, I feel like I couldn't have that suit.
it's just like imagine the disappointment, of waiting so long on a wait list and then waiting to get accepted and go through the whole commissioning process, which isn't easy for a lot of people, especially if scuff is difficult to work with, like others have said in the in the doc, but it's like to just all of that be thrown in the garbage because of these people would suck.
Yeah. It definitely it would suck. But yeah. I think that's it. I think we
Yeah,
talked
we've
about
covered
everything.
everything.
We covered everything.
Yeah.
Most of it had to do with the podcast, sadly. But that was definitely the biggest part of our video was that podcast because there
That
was
mess of a podcast.
and obviously I want to say it now again for like the third time because I want to make it clear. Do not send any hate or harassment towards Shiokami, Inspector, just anyone mentioned in this video. Just don't send any harassment towards them. Obviously if and I'm saying if because I don't think she'll watch the video, her or Inspector, but if Inspector or Shiokami is watching this video, let it be known this is just our own personal opinion on maybe what could have been done, what can be done to improve for next time, how this can be a learning lesson, perhaps on being careful on what to say, perhaps during a podcast, because to me, it definitely didn't seem, it seemed very insensitive to the victims, 100%, in my opinion. And I don't know if it was meant that way, but that's how I saw it. But yeah. That's it, I think. So,
Yep.
this is terrible. I just realized something. Not terrible. Did we decide what we wanted our poll to be?
Yeah.
Did we? Oh, okay. I forgot.
Yeah. Well,
Was it the top
I
3?
have it.
Was it it was the
Yes.
top 3. So it was yeah. So um I was not prepared for this. I didn't even make the poll. I was going to do it before um the stream so that way I could copy and paste um that way I could
The
copy and
poll
paste the
options.
link in the chat and I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I'm not prepared. Crap.
Well, we can still talk about like what our poll will be about.
Yeah, so
So we're gonna give you 3 options to pick from for our next podcast, and we're gonna take the overall vote for what you would like to hear next. And our 3 options are convention horror stories, so our own personal horror stories, um, relationships in the fandom, both like relationships and friendship wise, and young furries, in which of like kids getting into the fandom and what to expect and go wrong.
yeah. Just young furs in general. And like
Yeah.
the good and the bad.
How the fandom can be a positive thing and also a very negative thing.
How do can I set oh, it won't let me set a timer for the poll. Crap. Okay, I think I can start it and I think I can end it whenever I want to. I think that's how it works.
Yeah.
um so let's just create poll. Let me just see what happens. Okay, so it never ends apparently, but that's fine. That's fine.
Just set a reminder on your phone to shut it off after 24 hours or something.
I will it
A
won't let
couple
me.
days. I don't know. No,
Apparently,
like a
so
timer on your phone.
oh, no, I can't shut off the poll.
What?
Yeah, so
Oh.
this is a learning experience for me. Apparently, maybe I should make an account in order to shut off the poll. I think maybe that's the option to do it. Doesn't matter. It's fine. It's whatever. I'll know after 3 days. I'll take a picture of it or 5 days or whatever. I'll take a picture of it and I'll know. So, there is a
Yeah.
link to the poll. And if everyone is watching this on YouTube after the stream has been done, the poll will be in the description of the video. We will have the poll up for 3 days. So from right now, it is March 10th. The poll will be up until March 13th. Do we want to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Till March 13th. we'll say 11:59 p.m. on March 13th. And then me and Krampus will go. We will take a screenshot of the results. Because obviously I made a mistake and I don't know how to end the poll. And this is a learning experience. And yeah, so you can go and vote there for whatever you want. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Um, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. It definitely was a long one. Probably one of our longest ones until we want to talk about the other stuff. We have a whole list of
Yeah.
ideas. If you guys have any suggestions for ideas for future podcasts as well, please be sure to DM us on Twitter at Colors of Hell. You can also follow us there. And if you ever want to watch these podcasts back again and re-listen to this 2.5 hour long podcast, you can check out our YouTube channel also at Colors of Hell. And yeah, which is also linked on our Twitter. So, any last words, Crumpus? As the demon?
I'm sorry that this is so long.
I,
That's it.
we knew it was gonna be long. We didn't think this long, but we knew it was gonna be long. But yeah, have a great day, everyone, and please be sure to go and vote for the next podcast. Goodbye.
Yeah. Bye.